All right, good Tuesday evening. This is Mark of Sea Science Film Labs. Um, Here tonight to discuss the evolution topic, evolution versus creation. And basically, tonight I wanted to cover some of the discoveries that we've made, analyzing the remains these paleoanthropologists have brought to light. Um, I don't know. Jason might be coming here eventually too, and hopefully discussing them with me. I don't know if he's maybe on a journey or taking a nap or something, but I guess I'll just get into it. So here we'll talk about the afarensis again. This is your afarensis. I just want to cover some bases that I always do so that we know where we're coming from. I feel like a lot of these episodes we don't really talk about the discoveries that we've made and the problems with evolution theory as much as we could. So it'll be good to discuss this. And hopefully someone will show up to discuss it. Let's see. So yeah, we can start with this. These are all of the Australopithecine discoveries that could be considered partial skeletons. As you can see, there's 7 of them, and a couple of them are mainly just the vertebrae and the pelvic bones. So there's not really much to say about those ones. Well, can talk about this. Okay. So this whole blue or royal blue branch is represented by practically these 7 skeletons. So now this Australopithecine section, this is the missing link, so it'd be the link between would be the ancestors of modern chimpanzees and humankind. So you have all these branches that go to nowhere. They just die out, where they don't have nearly as many branches like that on the pan or the chimpanzee or the gorilla line, which is interesting. So like, could it be that some of these discoveries should be more classified in the pan line or the gorilla line? For instance, discoveries like the Littlefoot skeleton, which was found in the caves in Sterkfontein Caves in South Africa. Okay, so here you have an example where something really that looks quite like a gorilla, more than human. So you'd probably want to categorize this under the gorilla. I mean, if you were being honest. So there's a lot of features of this skull that match with a gorilla. So that's basically the point there. And this is one of the discoveries we made too, which is, something to bring up, is that the mandible, so the lower jaw here, and the upper jaw for that matter, but the lower jaw, the mandible, this is just the chart showing the anatomy of the mandible, so the mandibular anatomy. And as you can see, there's a name, the angle of the mandible, which is that curved section there, the radius. And if you look at this, it's like a dead match. So, but even more importantly is the protrusion of the jaw. The lower jaw and the upper jaw match in the front. And that's a big deal. Okay, because if this were a transitional form, you would expect that it would be in between, or at least decreasing that protrusion, becoming more human like. Well, this is not what you see here. I mean, right here you have almost a perfect match for the mandible with a gorilla. Just that boxiness of the skull. And when you compare them to the human, to the chimpanzee, it's evident, that the angle of the mandible and the overall shape of the mandible, the lower jaw, it's just completely different than in the gorilla. So the question arises, why would they classify this as an Australopithecine? This this animal pulled out of Stoke-Fontein caves, in my opinion, is just a just like just like Lucy happens to be. It's a collection of remains claimed to be of the same individual. Okay, when it's more likely that they're not from the same individual, and certainly not what they're claimed to be. They're certainly not these mini Sasquatches that the evolution theorists will have us believe in. So it's good to get the information out there. And I mean, it's not unscientific to have this position that we're not related to Australopithecine. Okay, I mean there are paleoanthropologists, even the Leakeys, going and saying, and on the record saying that here I've actually got it here, that they don't believe that these Australopithecine are related to human. And I mean, now it's not like I have a recording, but this is a quote from a book of Johansen, or Johansen, who's the discoverer of Lucy, and he says, uh, that he knew Louis Leakey, and he's one of the more famous paleoanthropologists of our time. But he didn't believe the Australopithecine were related or ancestral to humans. Okay, so not all paleoanthropologists hold this, the human evolution narrative as it is presented to the public. So here you have Johansen recalling Lewis's fascination with Homo as obsessive. The Australopithecines, he insisted, while interesting, were not humans. More, they were not ancestors. So just like I said, he didn't believe they were ancestor human. Moreover, he didn't believe Peking man or Neanderthal man were ancestors either. So it was as if there stretched in Leakey's mind a straight line that went back from Homo sapiens to newer and cruder, to an ever cruder, but always recognizably sapient forebear, as he was determined to find him. So yeah, you have Leakey going around, and Leakey, he had his dig sites in Africa as well. Uh, the gorge that he dug around, he pulled some pretty interesting finds from there. I don't really have the pictures of the habilis and stuff like he found, but he actually found what would be called, what they claim is, a robust Australopithecine. So you have these Australopithecine skulls where the upper jaw and um, the teeth are like a little bit thicker. They're more robust. So you have the robust Australopithecine. And as far as a photo, I guess you can kind of tell in here. So all Australopithecine are, they've got like more robust teeth than what would even be human. So they're really like a thicker toothed ape, obviously. I mean, when you look at the maxillary arcade, which is the upper jaw, the shape of the arrangement of the teeth, making the same U shape as a normal chimpanzee. That's not in between chimp and human, rather, but fully chimp looking. Now, as far as the length of the teeth in the front there, you have other chimp varieties that have different shaped teeth, and this is the bonobo, so it would be different than um, other chimp groups, and the teeth don't seem to protrude as much. So it's just interesting. Now, when you look at that, this this is supposed to be your Australopithecine skull, So this is Lucy's skull, the bottom of it, and you can see the maxillary arcade there. And when you look at that and you compare it to this, it's just like even the back molars are pinched closer together, you know. It's the same dental arcade. So whether the teeth are more robust or parabolic, you know, parabolic teeth, it's like they look the same. So definitely some kind of chimp rather than some missing link for that reason with the teeth as well. Here you have Lucy, and this is all that was found of the Lucy skeleton. And it's my opinion, and what we've discovered is that the pelvic bone, the sacrum, actually looks quite human. And that really stuck out to us. I mean, when first observing these remains. So, and when we were studying them from the get go, we found out that there was a baboon vertebra discovered in the Lucy conglomeration. So there's a remain in the conglomeration, and it's still included in the glass safe over in Ethiopia, in their Natural History Museum in Ethiopia, where Lucy's remains are stored in a glass safe. That remains in this glass safe with Lucy, even though they've discovered that it doesn't belong um, to that collection or to that individual, claimed individual. So what we have here is a situation where it's long been claimed that the only remains found on that hillside were of Lucy, and this is not the case anymore as of 2015. So that argument's bunk. It's obvious that Johansen was picking through um, a group of remains, and he picked and chose which ones to include in the conglomeration. So this has all come to light. This is the 50th year of Lucy's discovery, 50th anniversary of Lucy's discovery, and there's a lot coming to light this year, and I'm hoping that it can be exposed. But it's so well protected, and I mean, you don't want to say some kind of conspiracy, but what else is it? I mean, if you have a group of individuals trying to keep it secret, pull the well, I guess I don't know if it's conspiracy because I don't know who's getting hurt other than people are being lied to. But yeah. So for me, I guess, it'd be more that it's become the the what is the narrative, the scientific consensus, their narrative of science, biology. When there's things being discovered, it's just completely destroying evolution theory all the time. I mean, here you have the baboon vertebra being discovered in the most famous fossil collection in the planet. Um, this this is a big blow to the Lucy find. So And like again, like I said, for the longest time they were claiming that there was only remains of a single individual found in the side of the hill where Lucy was discovered. Okay, they say that they didn't find any extra remains or duplicate remains, suggesting there'd be more than one individual. Okay, well now they prove that there is more than one individual because they found that there was baboon remains included in that. So that argument's completely out the door. Um, so if it's already been proven that Lucy is just a collection of different individuals' remains, even different species, like this baboon, could it be that they included other remains in this Lucy skeleton that weren't that don't belong to what would be called an Australopithecine? Because they're pretty. I mean, they're so rare. Why would you want to believe in something so that there's no real evidence for? Oh, hey Joe, what's going on? Yeah, if you have any questions, man, feel free to toss them in the chat. So, like, looking at this, you've got to say the skull's incomplete. It's just fragments. There's a bit of a mandible there. I don't know if I'm coming through clearly, but and then you have your the femur. They have one femur that's broken in half. Um, as far as its length, it's kind of hard to say it was broken in half. So, I mean, they can say they put it back together, but yeah, I don't know. And with the femurs, it's kind of hard to say. So now the pelvis bones, the sacrum in the middle, the triangular bone in the center of the pelvis, the hip bones, is, I believe it's very human appearing. And I'll show you exactly what I'm talking about. I have the photos with me here. So yeah, here you have the sacral comparison we put together. And it was amazing to find such a close resemblance with a human remain. And what was even more interesting is they're supposed to have this skull that's fully chimpanzee. I mean, they have the extra parabolic shape of those back molars, but like, the afarensis maxilla is just so chimp looking. Okay, and then you come down and you compare it to the bottom of this thing, and you have it so human looking. Now, is that transitional to be fully chimp and then also fully human on the bottom? Because that's what we're dealing with here when we're looking at these critters. I mean, and that's exactly what they show. You have these mini Sasquatches that they're human on the bottom and chimp on the top. It just makes no sense, and it's certainly not what I'd think would be transitional. I mean, you have human legs appearing out of nowhere. You know, Nothing in between. It's just, and the reason they believe that they had human footprints like this and that they're so human is because they discovered these footprints in Lake Tolly. And these footprints were so human looking that ever since then, the missing link has been shown with full human footprints. So you have these animals with chimpanzee skulls and human pelvises, human bottoms, and that's just how they are shown. So yeah, that's the deal. So I like to call them, mini Sasquatches because that's what they are. That's what they look like, at least. I don't believe in Sasquatches personally, but I think, a lot of people do. And that's fine. You believe what you like. But I certainly don't believe in these ones that were, claimed to be around 3.2, 3.7 million years ago. Let's see. Yeah. So Afarensis, they believe it was from 3.9 to 3 million years ago. So, and then it just dies off and it goes on to Africanus, you know. And I know this chart's kind of small for you guys, but I hope you can see it. I'll blow it up. Oh, there we go. Yeah, so that's pretty clear. So yeah, 3.9 to 3 million years ago is what they're saying the Lucy animal lived. They even claim that she had some unshaped tools. So that would be them hammering with rocks or, whatever, sticks and such. I mean, it'd be the same claim that they're making about chimpanzees. Evans is in the chat. Hey, Evans. But yes, it's the same, it'd be the same claim that they're making about chimpanzees when they're saying that they're using tools, when they're sticking sticks into holes to get ants to lick off the stick. I don't know if you've ever seen them eat ants, but anyway. So yeah, guys, we're just, we're going over some of the discoveries that I've made, analyzing the remains of paleoanthropology. So really interesting stuff. I hope you're all really excited to learn about these, old dry bones. So, let's see. I'm going to put the link into the chat to join in. Just give me a few seconds here. And I'll be right back. All right, that should do it. So the link's in the chat if anyone wants to join. Throw the banner up, and I'll be waiting. So, just follow along. I've got some pictures of these animals, these imaginary critters of human evolution. So we'll talk about it. So now we've, covered Lucy and a little bit about Littlefoot, which Littlefoot, by the way, I kind of mentioned this, but I didn't really go into detail, is it wasn't found articulated or complete, or even all in the same, flowstone rock layer. You have a situation there where Littlefoot's foot, the famous Littlefoot, its foot, was found in a box of remains that was pulled from mining debris outside of the Sterkfontein cave system, left over from the mining that went on there before the paleoanthropology. So, so the paleoanthropologists of Sterkfontein, the early ones, they went through the mining debris that were cast aside, and they pulled a bunch of what looked, hominid looking bones out of there, anything that looked like it, put it into a box, had it in the museum. That's where Littlefoot's foot was pulled out of, not out of the cave flowstone layer that the skull was, but pulled out of the box that they pulled out of the mining debris, which could have come from anywhere in that cave. So it's assumed that Littlefoot's foot, the most famous find of that discovery, and the skull, but that foot was not actually found with Littlefoot torso or trunk, body, and skull, or the leg bones. So you have a pretty complete skeleton when you look at the STW 573 here. It's the one outlined in red. That's your Littlefoot. Okay, so it's by far the most complete, even more complete than Lucy. But in a lot of ways, it's not as good of a find as Lucy, as far as being able to get information from measuring the remains, comparing them to modern remains, because it is so badly mangled and deteriorated from the fossilization process that if you try to take measurements of these bones, you're going to get awkward measurements. Okay. So while Lucy's bones, which is to the left of the STW 573 here, are pretty well preserved, the STW 573, the Sterkfontein cave finds, are very deteriorated by the flow of water. Because Lucy was discovered in the side of a hill in gravel, while the STW 573 was discovered in a layer of flowstone in the Sterkfontein cave system. And, you know, I mean, the discoverers, Clark and Tobias, they said that the Littlefoot fossils pelvis bones, so the sacrum and the ilium that I'm always going on about the Lucy find, were completely just destroyed by the flow of water through this cave system. You know, so while it's a more complete find, it's far from as good of a find as Lucy is for being able to tell what you have. Because when you have a skull, so like I said, this is the Littlefoot skull, the STW 573. When you have a skull that's so badly crushed and pushed in, I'll show you a front view. I mean, you can compare it, and the entire brow ridge is just demolished. The cranium is caved in. You know, it's really hard to see the face of the Littlefoot skull. But this is one of the best skulls that they have, or the most complete. You know, and for one thing, it wasn't. It was found in one piece. You know, so it wasn't something that they fabricated and glued together like a little jigsaw puzzle, like you would have with the Australopithecine afarensis finds. This was actually found together in the flowstone layer. So what you're looking at when you look at the STW 573 is what was actually found. And that's why it's going to be so easy to figure out what it is, because they have a complete skull. Okay. Even though it's badly mangled and it's crushed and pushed in, we're going to be able to figure out what this is. And I'm pretty sure we figured out exactly what this is. So, and one of the most telling things, as I mentioned before, is the mandible. And the shape of the mandible matches exactly with a gorilla. Okay, and this was just us going through and comparing them to common primates remains. Okay, we compared it to the chimpanzee and the human. It didn't match. Nope. And that was a big deal too. And what stuck out to Leakey, Clark, who was discoverer of the STW 573. You know, he got credited with the discovery mainly. There was others involved, you know, and there was people that were working at this cave system before him as paleoanthropologists. But this was his baby. This was Clark's baby. And, you know, when you have something that matches so closely, you got to say it's a shame that Clark must not have had gorilla remains available to compare his discovery to, or else he might have known what he had. So, Littlefoot's foot was not found with Littlefoot. If it has any, if these conglomerations are bipedal in any way, it seems that they're more likely to be human remains that they've accidentally included or misinterpreted and included into these conglomerations. These fossil skeletons, such as Lucy and this Littlefoot, which are the two most complete Australopithecine across the board of all the species, all the claimed species of Australopithecine. Let's see. We have, get back to our pananthropological human evolution tree. Now let's show the Yeah, so you have Africanus, Gari, Sediba, Boise, um, Paranthropus. Your Africanus, and I think I already mentioned that one. Afarensis, Anamensis, and way down at the bottom you have Audi, I think. Oh, whoa, lookout chart. Yeah, Ardipithecus. So Artie, yeah, Ardipithecus remedis, way at the bottom. All those species, these are all different species of Australopithecine, supposed to be different groups, with completely different features, even in some cases. All of those add up to just those 7 skeletons. So when you're looking at this chart, you got to say, okay, the small numbers in the middle of the bars next to the names of the Australopithecine species is representing the actual number of remains that they've discovered. And that's the claimed number of individuals. So yeah, so with your Australopithecine sediba, you have 2 fossils or 2 individuals, but I mean they're fairly complete. So you have the sediba would be the last 2 on this chart. See, that's all it is. And I mean, there's actually more sediba bones than there is for a lot of these things. So the MH2 and MH1 on the right are your sediba. You have the STS14 being your Africanus. Then you have Prometheus, the Australopithecus Prometheus, STW573. And then you have the AL28-1, that's Lucy. That's your Afarensis. And I believe the KDS VP is another Africanus claim. But so they don't have a good Africanus. So you have people trying to claim the SW573, the little foot with the red line around it, is actually a Africanus because they didn't have a good collection that they claim are Africanus bones. So yeah, that's the case. And I'll be right back. I gotta take a quick break. So I'll be right back. All right, and I'm back. So we've discussed the 7 skeletons of the Australopithecine, revealed that they make up the entirety of the branch of this missing link branch here of the Australopithecina. And you see them all, charted out here as well. The Sediba, the MH1, MH2, Gari, and the Gari is just a single skull. And it's represented by one individual, but the individual is made up of like 4 skull fragments and a partial jaw. And from that, they've assumed an entire species of Australopithecine. It seems like any discovery will do. Any old chimp bones will do, it seems. And they seem to spread them out pretty wide. I mean, they're splitting them into all these different groups, you know. And there's just very little evidence for them, especially if you're going to believe that all of these groups of humans came from them. So, and I mean, if there were really these Sasquatch animals, why didn't they survive till modern day? And I guess, I guess maybe that would be the Littlefoot, if you want to believe in that kind of thing, or the Bigfoot. There's your Sasquatches out there. Those are just the remnants of these transitional forms. I don't know. But my thing is, you have pansies, these chimpanzees surviving tens of millions of years. Like their line's going all the way to the top. You have us all the way to the top, but they're supposed to stay arboreal apes the entire time while we get legs, human brains, learn how to, fly and drive cars. It's just, I don't know. It makes very little sense. So the discoveries are spread out into a bunch of different groups, and there's very few of them to mention. There's actually a lot more remains of the Homo groups, would be human remains, than there are of the Australopithecine. So, common sense creationists, hi, man. It's a real shame that creationists have to refute such a ridiculous theory like evolution at all. I will always stand by the idea that creation is just common sense. Yeah, it sure is. And I mean, when you look at this fossil evidence, it's just so lacking for what I'd expect. And they've had a good amount of time to look for these bones now, since Darwin kind of hypothesized that we'd find out of Africa, we'd find some transitional forms. And for them to have this single discovery, Lucy, still being the best representation of what would be a skeleton of these things, because, like I said, it's not deteriorated like the Littlefoot. Well, that was pretty bad. That's pretty telling in itself. And instead of finding more, we've found baboon bones in Lucy. So it's kind of going the opposite direction for what would be to prove evolution. I don't know. So, but I mean, I've got quite a few pictures in here to talk about. So now we know the branch and what they believe, or the phylogenetic tree here. We know how long ago they believe these critters lived. Okay. Now, when you look at this tree, you can see where they believe um, bipedalism began, because they believe that all of the royal blue area were bipedal animals. So somewhere along the line here would be, let's see, these numbers are a little bit thicker. 2, 4, 6. So they're saying between 6 and 8, but it's said to be between 6 to 10 million years ago is when this hypothetical chromosome fusion 2 event happened. Chromosome 2 fusion event happened that resulted in bipedal organisms like Sasquatches. So I guess where the blue meets the purple, you know. So basically, some chimpanzee ancestors, which looked quite like chimpanzees of modern day, um, had a baby with legs, and then that baby with legs created its own population of babies with legs, and those are your Australopithecine. But they believe that happened from like 6 to 10 million years ago. So that's where you see the purple meet the royal blue, and that kind of wavy line where my voice is talking and the thing's moving over it. But yeah, so I think we all know that, and we all know that there's none alive now, and so that's pretty telling, because the chimpanzees made it, and so did the humans, but none of these Australopithecine seem to made it to modern day. So that's kind of interesting. Yeah. So Lucy is very lacking. This is all the remains of the skull that they found for Lucy. And from those remains, they imagined the skull, which is really just a chimpanzee skull with these remains adhered. Okay, and just like that, I'm back. We had a couple of technical difficulties around the lab here. Um, I'm hoping to get in a co-host, and I think Jason is on the way home now. So we might get someone else in here tonight, so it's not just me yapping at you. Uh, yeah, I definitely had the some mic issues there, but I guess we can go back. So you saw Lucy's skull. I mean, you got to stare at it for a few seconds. Let's stare at it some more. I don't know. All right, let's see. So here's a book by Johansson. This is the book I bought online where I found out all the little secrets about Lucy and the discoverer and how she was discovered and the methods that they used to discover her. And it was really quite surprising because in my mind, you know, I had this idea, of Johansson going and finding Lucy, digging it out of this hill with like all the bones being in the same general area. But this is not the case. Instead, it was more like a situation where they took all the gravel off the side of the hill and they swept it down into the valley. And then they collected it up into bags and baskets and they laid it out on these cloths next to the river, the Wash River. And they just picked through it and tried to find all the little hominid bones that they could find. Okay. So to me, I find it very unlikely that they just found uh, remains of a single, what would be no repeating remains. So that would prove that there were more than one individual there. For me, it seems the fact that they found a baboon bone in the conglomeration should prove to everyone that there was more than one individual on the side of that hill. And the fact that where they claim that they used all the bones that they found, should make you think, wow, maybe there is more than one individual that makes up the Lucy skeleton. So it's a great book, and there's some great photos in it. That's where I found the photo of the early Laetoli footprint casting, which is amazing because even now the prints are pretty well deteriorated. They've preserved some good castings though, if you can get a hold of them. Um, Here you have an example of just how they extracted the fossils from the far location where Lucy was discovered. This is them collecting the AL333 the first family remains, which is just a collection of basically teeth and finger bones. No real skeleton to mention. I don't know if I have a picture of it here, but yeah, there's no real skeleton to mention. Just a collection of, say, I mean, there's hundreds of pieces. Now, they claim, I think, 14 different individuals from these remains, but I'd have to find literature on it to be positive. So, when you see pieces like this that are claimed to be Afarensis, it's usually from that first family, the AL333, that they that you saw the man pushing down the side of the hill, and then they're collecting and going through the remains, going through the gravel to pick the remains out. So when you see these fabrications would be Afarensis skulls, they usually use this as their and it would be the same one on the bottom of this skull, even though this is called Lucy's Afarensis, and they don't have the maxilla for Lucy, as you know. So here's all Lucy's remains. Yeah, so they don't have the maxilla for Lucy. So when you see the Afarensis represented, that's fully imagined, but they've used pieces from the AL333 to make composites to form the Lucy skeleton here. So this is an AL2A-1 Lucy, but the dark brown is not real, which is the entire bottom part of the skull. So what they used was the type specimen for the maxilla here, the upper jaw on the Lucy skull. And they represented it with this find, which was from the AL333, the first family. So AL333 is just the designated dig site at the Afar location, Afar location, okay, where Lucy was discovered. And that is right here, the Hadar site. If I can find a different map, show where we're at. Okay, so Hadar is Eastern Africa. Okay, now we're gonna get some topographical maps on it. So you have Yemen across the Gulf of Aden from the Afar Triangle. That Afar Triangle with the end of the river where it goes into the Sea of Aden, or the Gulf of Aden, I'm sorry. Where it flows into the Gulf of Aden, that is the Hadar region. So you have this river system that's depositing fossils, okay, in this area over time. And it's possible that a lot of the fossils that are deposited in the Afar Triangle in this area are from upstream. Okay, so you have the stream that goes all the way up to Lake Victoria that's depositing sediments and fossils with them downstream into the Afar Triangle. Now, why does that matter? Well, it has to do with part of my theory here. So, just so you know. Now, if you look at a topographical map of the area, you get a better idea, I think. And you can see that little smaller map too, showing where Ethiopia is. Now, the African Republic. Yeah, so you have the Congo as well in this area. It's like the whole centered part of Africa. Central African Republic. Now, where Louis Leakey was digging was right around Lake Victoria, sort of a bit east from Lake Victoria there. And he was in the Olduvai Gorge. and he found what was claimed to be a robust Australopithecine skull in those digs, and they called him Nutcracker Man, I think. Now that was a pretty major discovery, but he wasn't happy with that because Lewis, he was out there looking for human ancestors, and as this paper revealed, as the book revealed by Johansen, he didn't believe the Australopithecine were ancestral to humans. So when he found this, he was kind of like, "Oh man, I found this damn robust Australopithecine skull," and he just kind of handed it to Mary, I think. But what a thing! What a thing to go and find something like that. Now, these robust Australopithecine, they're just some other kind of some ape, and I would say a tree-dwelling ape. It's pretty evident by the arm bones and the pelvic. Oh, not the pelvic. The upper body remains of these animals that they were still dwelling in the trees. And the reason that is because the upper parts of the animal were chimpanzee. Okay, they were arboreal dwelling apes. And the reason the bottom parts, or at least the hip parts, seem to be so human is because I think that they were human remains. And that's the whole story with these critters that they're claiming are evidence for human evolution. I was saying here for a second when the mic was off that there's 6 pieces of skull fragments that make up the Lucy skull, and it's fully imagined from there. They don't have the upper jaw, but this is the type specimen that they use, which, as I said, is from the AL333, the first family collection. The prognathism, the jutting out of the incisors, is just like a chimpanzee. So they have a bunch of pieces of chimpanzee, would be my opinion. Yeah. You'll likely notice that the Afarensis' maxilla has a classic U-shaped dental arrangement seen in the tree-dwelling apes, in which the back molars are closer together than the preceding ones, which run more parallel, opposed to the more V-shaped human maxilla mandible, which I'm not sure I have a picture of right here, but it's very telling. Like, the shape of the jaws themselves is very telling. Oh yeah, there you go. And I say a V shape because if you draw a line through the molars of the human maxilla, you get a V shape. Whereas if you draw lines through the molars of the Afarensis or the chimp, obviously you get straight lines. And it's a very U shaped, rather. So, onto the pelvis. The Lucy sacrum has 5 sacral segments, just like human sacrum. It also has the same curvature of a human sacrum. It has the same number of foramina as a human sacrum. And these foramen, these holes in the sacrum that the nerves and muscles pass through, are at the same angle, and they're arranged the same way, and the holes are at the same angle as a human sacrum. That's why I believe it's a human sacrum. So we just break it down. The ilium is a full reconstruction. It's put together like a puzzle, like a jigsaw puzzle. They pull this out of the ground in pieces, where the sacrum, the triangle center remain here, that was pulled out as one piece. That wasn't glued together. It was already fused together and found articulated in the ground. So, or in the gravel. Could have been on the top of the gravel. with the way they did it. So it might not have even been found at the site. He might have pulled it out of some Ethiopian graves. I guess he did some grave robbing that he got in trouble for. But I'm not going to go there with that because it's not necessary. You know, when you compare this to a human pelvis, it's just so obvious. It's not in between chimp. It is fully human. Another thing we discovered is there appears to be a portion missing from either side of the bottom of the sacrum, and it makes the sacrum appear angled. It also leaves the last set of foramina open. So that's something to notice. And this could be just from natural wear and tear from the ears sitting in the gravel, you know. Or, I mean, it could have been after the fact that these portions are removed. So that's one thing that is missing, and obviously missing from this sacrum is a couple portions of the bottom there. Now this one's fully complete. You know, this is a human sacrum. Now this is slightly smaller than what would be the average female human sacrum, but it falls within the range of humanity, and even just small framed women. Like, it wouldn't even have to be a person from Ethiopia. I mean, it wouldn't have to be. Man, hang on, I gotta take care of something. All right, I'm back. Yeah, common sense creationists. Yeah, I mean, that was something that I found in the book that really stuck out to me was the way that the remains were collected off the side of the hill. I mean, that this guy is like really just scooping them down the side of the hill. And then they were collected and they were put on blankets along this Awash River and picked through. You know, I mean, yeah. So it wasn't a case where they were found articulated, connected, or even all in the same area. They were found along the side of a hill and then later claimed to be all from the same individual, which is a fantastic claim, you know, for the method that they used to get the fossils. So if you want to check it out, this book right here, you can buy it off Amazon. Um, it's got a whole section of photos. They're just so revealing. I mean, now Lucy's pelvis, like I was saying, it's a little bit smaller than the average modern female human pelvis, but it's well within range of female humans, even small framed humans. Um, she wouldn't necessarily have to be like a pygmy, but I just want to, like, you know, the range of humanity is wide. And when you're going around and you're digging remains out of the dirt, if you're finding remains of anybody that's lived ever on this planet is what you're sourcing from. So when they use test groups of individuals, which are like women that are 5'5" to 6 foot tall, okay, and you're drawing from 14 individuals, 14 women from around the planet, these different skeletons that they have to compare to with this Lucy find, and they're leaving out the small framed women, um, and even pygmies, and it's not honest research, and they're using these small differences in variation between humanity to try and claim um, transition. They're trying to claim that these are transitional fossils, when the fact of the matter is they're just normal human fossils. So, yeah. So I mean that's one thing I learned. That really stuck out to me when I was researching these remains and just comparing them, making the comparisons that I threw together. I guess on another note, here's something that is also very telling about the Littlefoot skull, is that it has the same sutures as the gorilla skull.
There, get in there. Yep.
So you have three lines.
There.
Hey.
All right, I got it.
Hey,
fuck me. Hang on. This fuck. Sorry, I apologise if you're live. Oh, sorry, you're live. I didn't realise.
Yeah, we're live.
I realised you'd gone live. Sorry, I was trying to get in there before 1. You started at 12. Anyway, all right, keep going, man. I've got to do stuff, so I'll be back soon.
All right, I'll be here. Just getting a few things together. So yeah, like I was saying, the sutures, which are the lines on the skull from where the skull fuses during the course of your life, or the course of life of the individual. They're all different between humans and chimpanzees, and even gorillas are different from each other. So that was one thing that I looked for to compare. The Littlefoot skull too. It makes sense because it's one of the ways to identify a skull. Now, what's interesting is that the chimpanzee and the human skull don't have the 3 sutures on top. Okay. These ooh, there you go. Yeah, so the arrow on the right, the red arrow on the right is pointing almost to it. Yeah, those 3 lines going up over the top like that, it's just not there. Oh, here we go. Yeah, it's just not there on these. So finding that, and then there's that triangle shape that's made at the very back, the base of the cranium, as it makes a triangle shape, which is the same on all 3 of them, but the way that the top 3 match is just undeniable. And you can see from the back side here, the back view of the STW 573 Littlefoot skull, is that the cranium was pushed up and in, and you can see where it's cracked and where it's been pushed up. So any difference in the foramen magnum, or the fact that the foramen magnum is claimed to be a little bit closer to the front of the skull, and then they try to claim bipedalism in this animal from that fact. That's completely dismantled. Like, that argument's dismantled by the fact that the cranium has been pushed up and in, and that would move the site of the foramen magnum. So this claim of bipedalism from the skull's foramen magnum is really, really not going to help them. I mean, unless you don't know that the skull's so badly mangled and so badly pressed from time and compressed that you just take them for their word, I guess. But again, they're using just slight differences, things like misshapen deformation, to make these claims of transition from these bones. It's just not scientific. What it is, it's dishonest. So in some cases, I mean, they might be able to claim that they misinterpreted the remains, But to me, what we've seen in the past, obvious fraud, even fraud coming to light, where they have to get rid of entire species of these imaginary ancestors of human evolution. It's a field that's filled with frauds and questionable finds. That's paleoanthropology. Now, humanity has a wide range of size and therefore a wide range of the frames for their skeletons. So there's always going to be new discoveries made of human remains that they're going to try and prove evolution, because they're slightly different than what would be the common modern human frame. Okay. And they're going to continue to push their religion onto the masses and try to groom people to believe in their religion based off of very lacking evidence. So you have one good skeleton, it's called Lucy, and that thing's going down this year. We're going to dismantle it. I know we're doing our best. I wish we'd talk about it more. I mean, we've been getting into abiogenesis on here, and let's see, subatomic particle physics, I think, and cosmology. We get into a lot of different topics, but I really would like to hit up the Lucy topic more and just kind of get that information out there, because like a lot of people don't know that Lucy was discovered by shoveling gravel off of a hillside and then picking through it. That's something that's kind of not brought to light. A lot of people don't know about the baboon vertebra that was discovered in the Lucy conglomeration by Gary Sawyer in the New York City American Museum of Natural History back in 2015. I mean, this is just 9 years ago now that discovery was made, but it's been overshadowed by other things like the Lucy space mission. Okay, NASA launched the Lucy space mission to go look at some asteroids. So now whenever you look up Lucy or Dinkinesh, which is another name for Lucy, you're going to find articles on the space experiment, I guess. So, and not Lucy. And that came out in 2015, the same year that they found that bone in Lucy. That pretty much should make anyone question it. I mean, if for the longest time, the narrative has been that it's a single individual, there's no other remains in it, and then they find an entire different species remain in it, was accidentally misinterpreted and included in it. That's pretty telling. So, yeah. So we've talked about the distant starlight problem before on this channel. We talked about ERVs. Lots and lots of topics.
Well, there's the one-way light convention.
Yeah.
Let me find a distant starlight. I think it's Stephen Meyer. Oh no, is it Stephen Meyer? No, it's the other one. Hang on. Oops. Light.
All right.
Okay. Hang on. Oh, it's going to take me a while to find this. Yeah. Here. I'm just going to put a link in the. I can put this video up. We'll start this video.
Sure.
On. What's that one? Jason Lyle's answer to Hugh Ross, Discerning Truth Dialogue, The Age of the Earth. All right.
Sounds good.
What's this 1 minute video? Speed of light, impossible to measure. Okay. We'll start with this. Oh, no, we won't start with that one. We'll start with Jason Lyle. And, okay. It's just loading.
All right.
Hang on. Wait for it to load. It's just my computer's as slow as a wet week. Actually, I like wet weeks. I like it when it's wet and raining. I like the rain. Okay. And there we go. And present. I've got to put the,
All right.
the link in. Hang on.
The layout right.
It's coming.
Put it there.
And just grab the link. Copy that in there.
Yeah, I found this sweet background today.
Chat's not there. Why is the chat?
Indeed it.
Oh, that's why. I see. Okay. Oh, come on. Okay.
Well, there's a couple of people in the chat earlier.
It's an old pile of garbage, man. It's like it really takes a long time. Like normally this would have taken just 5 or 10 seconds with a normal computer, but this pile of garbage. All right, that just gave all the hackers out there a green light. Yeah, go on, go through McAfee servers, you bastards. That's how they feel about you hacking. Anyway, all right. And that's another thing, just because McAfee and people like that don't hand over stuff that they find straight away doesn't mean they don't know you're doing it. Anyway, here we go. Sure. So let's see. Okay, I posted that. Sorry. Too busy talking, not thinking. All right.
Well, let me just before you play or whatever, let's make sure the stuff's all set. And I just want to talk about what I've already reviewed tonight, basically before, because you missed it. Is I basically touched on paleoanthropology, and Lucy, and the Littlefoot skeletons, and all that. So, but yeah, that's about it. So.
That's
that old.
Do you want to do something like that, or do you? This will be interesting. This distant starlight thing. We haven't done this before.
Oh yeah, let's run this. I'm interested.
Jason Lyle. Yeah, it is. It is interesting. All right. So, we ready to go? Yep. Okay.
Yeah, let's run it, man. Let's do it.
Hi, folks. Jason Lyle here with Discerning Truth, the podcast of the Biblical Science Institute. We have, in the last several sessions, been looking at a dialogue I did with Dr. Hugh Ross some time ago. And we've been analyzing some of the things that he said, some of the things that I said, maybe some of the things I could have said better.
I'm just turning the what's he down the.
But hindsight is 20/20, as they say. We're going to continue that analysis today. And we're going to look at, in particular, the distant starlight issue. So I think a lot of you will find this very interesting. And we'll even go into a little bit of the physics of Einstein, nothing too in depth. But I'll show you some resources you can get to learn more about this issue, because I think here is one of the real strengths of the biblical timescale. When you understand the physics of Einstein, the physics of what's called relativity, you'll find that it's easy to get starlight here, even instantaneously. Even today, it's not a problem for the biblical time scale. And I think a lot of old Earth creationists don't realize that. So let's have a look, and I hope this will be helpful to you.
Let me ask you this. When we look at the sun, do we see the sun as it is right now, or do we see it as it was 8 minutes ago?
Well, it depends on which synchrony convention you use. If you're using the anisotropic synchrony convention, we're seeing it as it is right now. If you're using the Einstein synchrony convention, it's 8 minutes ago. And Einstein would say those are both equally legitimate conventions. Even the way that Dr. Ross asked that question suggests that he doesn't really know much about the physics of Einstein. Because if you understand the physics of Einstein, you know that any question, how long does it take to get from here to here, will depend on the reference frame and, frankly, the synchrony convention. This is something, again, that Einstein discusses in his primer book on relativity, It's not hard stuff, but it's something that he talks about again in page 23. The idea that the speed of light in that direction is the same in that direction. How do you know that? Einstein says you can't know that. That's just something we're going to stipulate, and it gives you a definition of simultaneity. He makes that very clear on page 23, right? Talking about the speed of light being the same that way is in reality neither a supposition nor a hypothesis about the physical nature of light, but a stipulation which I can make of my own free will in order to arrive at a definition of simultaneity. So that's one way of defining now. This is the whole question. What does now mean over there? You see, in order to say how long does it take for something to get from there to here, you'd need to have a clock there, at least in principle, to tell you when the object left, and you need to have a clock here to tell you when it arrived, and those two clocks would have to be synchronized. But the problem is there is no universal objective way to synchronize two clocks that everyone in the universe would agree upon. Can't be done. That's one of the things that Einstein discovered. That's what makes his discovery so profound. And then the other thing that Hugh Ross is missing is the relativity of simultaneity, which is, again, this is an early chapter in the book. You see here, relativity of simultaneity. And that has to do with the fact that even if you make the assumption that the speed of light's the same that way as that way, which is called the Einstein synchrony convention, nonetheless, the amount of time it takes for an object or even light to get from here to here will depend on the reference frame of the observer. In other words, if light takes 8 minutes to get from the sun to the earth, according to my reference frame, then someone else in space who is moving relative to me would not say 8 minutes. They would give a different answer. It might be 4 minutes. From the light's point of view, it's 0, because that's the proper time between the two is 0.
Yeah, but again, these measurements of supernova actually established.
And I refuted that on the website. You need to take a look at it, Hugh. Hugh, I love you, but you don't know what you're talking about. You cannot distinguish a convention by measurements. And that should be obvious because you need a convention in order to perform measurements. And so when it comes to, for example, the one-way speed of light, that is a convention. It's something we choose, and that tells us how to synchronize clocks. Then once we have our synchronized clocks, we can begin measuring one-way speeds. But the problem is you can't measure any one-way speed unless you already had synchronized clocks and therefore had already chosen the one-way speed of light. So no, you cannot by supernova or by any process measure objectively the one-way speed of light without first assuming the one-way speed of light. That is the conventionality thesis. Einstein wrote about it. Hugh, you need to read up on this topic. And I will
disagree with your reputation, and so do the astronomers who wrote the paper on that supernova. Again, they saw 3 separate supernova eruptions from the same event over a 3-year period of time.
Hugh's made a lot of mistakes here. First of all, he's talking about a gravitationally lensed supernova. He mistakenly said it produced 3 images. It actually produced 4 images, and then a 5th one was produced a year later. And then he said it happened over 3 years. No, it happened, the 4 events happened simultaneously, and then the 5th one was 1 year later, not 3 years later. And that's that kind of thing is very rare. There are only 2 cases of a gravitationally lensed supernova that we have in terms of our records. And one happened in 2014. That was the Refstal supernova. And then another one happened in 2016. Okay, so what is
I love the way he takes apart this supernova idea. I've had so many atheists come at me with this supernova thing. Anyway, it's just interesting the way he dismantles them.
Gravitationally lensed supernova. Well, basically, a supernova is when a star explodes. A couple different kinds. We won't go into details, but it becomes very bright when that happens. It releases an enormous amount of energy, and the star briefly becomes brighter than the entire galaxy that it's in, all the other 100 billion stars in that galaxy. Now, gravitational lens has to do with the fact that mass has gravity, and gravity pulls on light. The effect is generally very slight. That's why we don't notice it on Earth. Our gravitational field is very faint, so light doesn't seem to be falling, but it is falling. It's just light moves so fast we don't notice it. But what happens is you have this supernova, this exploding star at incredible distance away, and then in between that exploding star and the Earth is a galaxy or a cluster of galaxies, in the case of the Refstal supernova. And what the light is initially not aimed directly at the, initially it's aimed up a little bit, and then it gets bent by the gravity of all those stars in the galaxy until now it's directed toward the Earth, and so it comes straight toward us at that point. And you can actually get multiple images because maybe some of the light goes above the galaxy, some of it goes below and gets bent up, some of it goes to the left, some of it goes to the right, and eventually comes and hits us. And so, and this happened in 2014. We saw 4 separate images of the same supernova because they had taken 4 different paths around this cluster of galaxies. And then based on the estimated mass in that cluster, astronomers predicted that we might see a 5th image in 2015, which we did. It was right where it
The
was.
problem with NASA, Doug, is that NASA is 100% run by evolutionists. It's their whole. Yeah, Doug, we're live. It is that they take
Oh, Doug's
they're
here.
an
Doug's here
evolution.
too. Hey, Doug.
Yeah. Amen. He says hello.
So we have
Anyway,
Doug and Jason and Faithful, Honest, and True tonight. That's good.
yeah.
That's good.
Well, Doug's there, yeah, just sitting here. Anyway, it doesn't matter. I'll just keep going with this, and I'll say it after. It doesn't matter. It's not important.
Was predicted to be in November, December of 2015. We saw a 5th image where light had taken a longer route and then had gone to the Earth that way. So we saw a slightly more displaced image of that same supernova. Now, the only other time that's happened, it happened again in 2016 with a different supernova, and this one happened with a single galaxy, and it produced 4 images, and that's it. There's no 5th. Because it's a single galaxy, and so the time scale is very tight. Now, the interesting thing is because in the first case, in the Revstal supernova, the 5th image took a longer time because it took a longer path. And I think what Hugh is assuming is he's thinking, well, that proves that the speed of light must be the same in all directions, because if it was instantaneous toward Earth, then perhaps all 5 images would have arrived at the same time. And if that's what he's thinking, is mistaken, because I've answered that claim on the Biblical Science Institute website. There's a refuting the critics article where I did where Peter had made that very claim, and what I showed was he's not thinking consistently, because the light from that supernova, it's not initially directed toward the Earth. You see, in the anisotropic synchrony convention, which is, I believe, the convention the Bible uses to describe celestial events, light, when it's directed directly toward an observer, is instantaneous. It takes no time at all to get from there to here. But the return trip, if you wanted to send a signal back, it would travel at half c, half the round trip speed of light. And that makes the round trip speed of light c, which is 186,000 miles per second. It's quite fast.
Well, 300,000 miles, 300,000 kilometers per second. It's about 296 or 7 or 8 or whatever thousand kilometers, but you may as well say 300,000 kilometers per second. Yes, they do understand. Doug, we're live, mate. I know it's a joke, but of course they understand. They've got metric. Actually, the Americans are actually like the math to work out on imperial is way harder than to work out on metric. So actually, we're being dumbed down with metric in a way. We're being dumbed down. But anyway.
But what about intermediate angles? What if the light's not directly toward you, but kind of toward you? Well, then it's not quite instantaneous. It'd be faster than c, but it would not be instantaneous. And when I answered Peter's objections, and also this is in my original article on this topic that I published back in 2010 in the Answers Research Journal, I gave the equation for intermediate angles. And so what happens with this supernova, the reason you get the 4 events, the first 4 images at about the same time, is because their angle away from the galaxy is the same. And so they travel at finite speed until they're bent around, and then they speed up, and then they zip to Earth essentially instantaneously once their direction is directly toward the Earth. The 5th image, the light traveled at a deeper angle, a larger angle of departure, and therefore the speed would have to be slower, according to the anisotropic synchrony convention, until it gets bent around. So it reaches the mass of the cluster later than the other 4 images, which is why it arrives a year later. And so it's perfectly consistent with the anisotropic synchrony convention. It's just, I think Hugh hasn't bothered really to study this. Hugh mentioned something about the astronomers who actually made this discovery. Yeah, I've read their papers, and there's nothing in those papers about the one-way speed of light or using supernova as a measurement for one-way speed of light. Round trip speed of light, sure.
There you go. There you go. There's nothing in those papers that measure the one-way speed of light through via a supernova or gravitational lensing or any of that rubbish, which I hear from evolutionists constantly.
That you can measure. One-way speed, you can't measure. There are other cosmological factors that you can derive from supernova observations, but the one-way speed of light is not one of them. We'll take a look at some of those papers here in just a few minutes.
Let me bring up my website because I don't know what else to do here, because what you're saying has been refuted.
This is why scientists debate issues not in informal dialogues like this, but in the technical peer-reviewed literature. Because you see, in a debate like this, you can just make claims and it's very hard to know who's telling the truth. But when it comes to a peer-reviewed document, you can take a look. You have to back up what you're claiming, and you have to provide references. And if you make a claim that's false, and somebody can take a look at the reference and they can see that it's false. I have already refuted the claim that Hugh Ross made, and it is on the website. And this is under the title Refuting the Critics, Distant Starlight and ASC. And so I'll put the link up there for you so you can see that. I'm not going to take the time to read it now, but you can see in this article, I deal with this idea of a supernova and the gravitational lensing of the light from those supernova, and the fact that you cannot use that to establish the one-way speed of light. You can measure the round-trip speed of light, but not the one-way speed of light using this kind of scenario.
I shared this with you on the first debate we made.
It was just as wrong then as it is now.
I've just got to say it. I can't stand Hugh Ross. I really can't. He just annoys. Anyway, I'm not going to get into it. I'm not going to say how I really feel about him because I get the channel shut down. But yeah, I don't like him very much. I don't like him at all. He's just one of those buffoons that's being dismantled by a non-buffoon, by someone who actually knows what they're talking about. He just gets up there and spreads all this stuff about what do they call it? Theistic evolution. He's a full-on theistic evolutionist, and here he is being dismantled with his tripe. Good on you, Jason. Good on you, brother. Dismantle the dog.
You can't determine one-way speeds from a supernova, or really from any measurable phenomena.
Namely that, look, okay, if you want to have this kind of a technical debate, we need to do it in front of a trained audience.
No, the way scientists settle these kinds of debates is in the peer-reviewed technical literature. That's the way we discuss these things, and there's a reason for that. You see, in an informal dialogue like this, or even in a formal debate where you have experts in the field there, you can still make these quick claims that the other person can't check because of the constraints on time. But in the written literature, you can't get away with stuff like that. Think about, just think about in the past few podcasts that we've been covering, think about all the things that Hugh Ross has said that are just demonstrably false. And I've shown you that, and I've been able to do that because I can come back and I can take a look at it. I can look at the literature. For example, Hugh makes this claim that there's no lexicon, there's no Hebrew lexicon in the world that would claim that the use of yom as a long period of time is figurative or non-literal. Well, I gave a counterexample. Strong's Concordance does that. But you see, unless you're aware of that in the middle of a debate, you can't answer that. That's why peer review occurs in written form. Now, if Hugh wants to debate me in a written format, I would be delighted to debate him on this issue. In fact, Hugh, if you're watching,
You won't do it. I bet he still hasn't done it
up
to
your
this day.
criticism
This
of the
video's been
conventionality
up for
thesis.
ages.
I'll publish it on my website along with my response, because I don't think that you can defend that issue.
And so I'm willing to do with you what I did with Jason or with Danny Faulkner. Let's have a public debate in front of a panel of evangelical research astronomers and get
But that's
their
not
judgment on
science,
the
buddy.
debate.
What you've
Because
said is very revealing.
audience, huh?
What you've said is very revealing, because you see it reveals our different standards.
You have
Your
to
standard
play
for what
in
determines
front of
truth
a panel of
lines of
people. I mean, depending on like those people's biases, if they're all creationists, hardcore young Earth creationist scientists, they're gonna be biased. If they're hardcore evolutionists, they're going to be biased. If they're theistic evolutionists, they're going to be biased. If they're old Earth creationists, they're going to be biased. It's the only way to do a peer review is exactly the way Jason Lyle's saying, is in written form. So it's on record what you said, like written record, and it can be refuted in written record, and then you can bring out your links and your evidence and so on and so forth. They never do this. And even someone as educated as Hugh Ross still, goes on with imaginary scenarios that don't even exist and tells him that he's wrong and all this sort of stuff. He doesn't even know what he's talking about. How embarrassing. Anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I heard Hugh Ross say your name, Jason.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I annoy everyone. I piss everyone off so much that and actually they're mentioning me in a lot of peer-reviewed papers. Obviously, because like I get a lot of things wrong, and then I recant later, right? But it's too late, Like I'm getting mentioned in peer-reviewed papers all over the world.
Sure.
Oh, that Jason, he's a bloody idiot. No, I think it's another Jason Ezard. I think I've been mentioned sometimes, but I'm pretty sure it's a different Jason Ezard. There's not many Jason Ezards with E-Z-A-R-D on the planet. If you have a look on Facebook, you won't find many on the whole earth, Jason Ezards, but it's still, there's other Jason Ezards out there. So they keep sending me things. They used to keep sending me things saying, someone mentioned you, Jason Ezard, in a peer-reviewed article from somewhere, I can't remember where, and I used to get them all the time, and I never bothered to look because I couldn't be bothered reading through the whole thing, and I just thought, I'll stuff it if they just mention it.
Sure.
Hey
Robin, welcome to the open mic, man. It's good to see you.
Yeah, go for it. Yeah.
Hey, C.
Hey,
Oh,
Robin.
hey.
Yeah, we're watching a video about let me see, discerning the truth. The
One-way
dialogue.
speed of light convention, basically.
I
It's the
honestly
one-way
haven't
speed of light.
understood 90% of this video so far.
Yeah.
I'm
It's
trying.
just about the one-way speed of light. So yeah.
All right. What are you getting into tonight, Robin?
I'm getting ready to go pick up some milk.
Nice.
I know. That's why I
Traveling.
laugh, but never ever hear.
I just sit just to my barn here in town.
I'm hopeless.
Oh, cool.
I can't. I'd never make it as a submarine operator, would I? As a listening guy on a submarine. Anyway, sorry. I missed what you said, but it doesn't matter.
Have you met Robin? Have you met Jason yet at all? Or
Hey, Robin,
No.
how you going?
No, I don't think
I think-
so.
okay, all right. Well, we're
You
here
probably-
with
you lucky you,
Jason and
Doug
Doug tonight.
My friend here, Doug, said, "Lucky you." You haven't met me yet. Yeah, you probably have on Praises channel. I've probably pissed you off at some point or another. I've pissed everyone off.
I don't
there's
come
many
on
people.
Praise's channel.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay.
You dodged a bullet there. Anyway. What's his name? The dude. The dude. The dudette. Doug calls
Oh,
him
the dude.
dudette.
Yeah,
The
I've seen that guy.
He wears a dress behind the scenes. Nah, we're just joking. The dudette. Anyway, no, we won't get into that. Anyway.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
No, I know. I'm talking dribble. Most people don't know what I'm talking about, so you're in with good company there. The smartest people on earth can't work me out, so you know.
Well, I think we're just gonna try and make sense of this video. I mean, Jason, he knows what's going on. So what is show us, define the entire.
Well, you've got like every million light years, you've got concentric circles of galaxies, and in between those concentric circles, you've got absolutely nothing. No gravity, no matter, no particles, or very little to slow light down.
I thought it was evolution.
And what I worked out is that they actually slowed the speed of light down. Now, this is something I want to put out there. They actually slowed the speed of light down to 38 miles per hour. at Harvard University by putting it through a liquid, like say you put milk into a liquid, and the more particles in the milk, the longer it takes the light to reach one side to the other. But what is happening there is that light is still traveling at 300,000 kilometers per second, 186,000 miles per second. But as it hits each particle, it has to, wait for that particle to move out of the way. So, you know what I mean? Like if you put your hand in front of a light and there's 1,000 hands, and then you keep like moving the hands around, the light will get through eventually, you know what I mean? Get past the particles. And that's what's slowing it down. It's not actually slowing down. It's particles, and gravity has an effect on light too. I mean, just putting lights up, a different clock from here, and you synchronize two clocks, and the other clock is only, say, 100 kilometers away, it'll be a different time zone. It's impossible to synchronize clocks to get the one-way speed of light. It's just impossible. It cannot be done. It cannot be done via supernovas. It cannot be done by anything, and that's basically what he's saying. So no one knows the one-way speed of light, and
So what does that prove?
It solves a lot of problems. It's a convention. So it's an agreed upon convention, but it's not like 100% settled science. Okay, it's just a synchrony convention. It just proves that light can travel infinitely fast in one direction, but when we can only measure the two-way speed of light. So you set up a mirror, and then you set up your little static test, and you hit it, and it reflects off the mirror and then comes back, and that's what you're measuring. So you're only measuring the reflected speed. Like when a bullet reflects, what happens? It goes slower, right, after it reflects. Lots of things do. So you're only measuring the reflected speed of light. You're not measuring the one-way speed of light. So no one can ever measure the one-way speed of light, for no matter how much our technology advances, and he's going to get into the papers soon on this, we can never do it, ever. It's impossible.
I've never said, I don't say never.
No, really. It's one of those things that they can never, ever do because you can never synchronize the clocks. Like if you have a clock even 30 meters away from me, and you try to synchronize a clock that's even only 30 meters away, two clocks, that clock that's 30 meters away will have it be in a different time zone. Basically, he explains all this later on.
So you could actually, you're saying that you could probably measure it. You just really can't do the time.
No, you can't. You can't. You can never measure the one-way speed of light. You can only measure like you set up your clock, and then you set up a mirror, and you turn the light on, and it reflects off the light and bounces back, and that's what they're measuring, the bounce back speed. They can't measure the time it takes the light to reach the mirror. They can only measure the time it takes for the light once it's hit the mirror and reflected back. That's the only
so
way
let's
they can measure it.
say
Light travels so fast, you can't set two different clocks. Anyway, go on, see science, sorry.
Yeah, let's say that that they've proved light can be slowed down or whatever. What does this solve for us?
That's what I was wondering.
Yeah.
Well, it doesn't really solve anything at all. It solves absolutely nothing. All it proves is that light can be slowed down via particles. If you've got trillions of particles in a glass of water, and you put, like you've got 26 times to the 18th or something, I can't remember. It's something to the 18th power, how many particles? 10 to the 18th, I think. 18 mil skip of water. If you put milk into that water, it creates more particles in there. Clouds up the milk. And if you run light through the clear water, it'll go through it at 300,000 kilometers per second. But if you then put a little bit of milk in the water, and you run it through all those particles, they can literally slow it down to 38 miles an hour. But what's happening is the light's
but not
hitting
with
each
milk.
particle, and then the particle moves out of the way, and then the light moves up to the next particle. You know what I mean? And that's blocking it. And then that particle moves, because the particle's always moving. And then it moves to the next particle and the next particle, and that's what's slowing it down. It's not actually being slowed down, like actual light itself. Speed is not actually being slowed down. And that's something that 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 it doesn't really help us at all. It doesn't help either side doing that test. But they try to come out and say that it does, the evolutionists and the creationists.
What does
but
that
it
have to
doesn't.
do with evolution?
Because because you've got the amount of like the universe. When we look at light, we're looking at light from stars that were cast 13.7 billion or 13 billion years ago. They can literally look in the satellite
You're not
and
talking
look at
about
galaxies.
biological evolution,
Yeah,
right?
so they're saying, how can we be 6,000 years old and only
I think he's
have-
talking cosmic, cosmic evolution.
Yeah.
I mean, it still don't have anything to do with evolution, though. Actually, the speed of
What?
light or the age of the Earth.
No,
actually.
the speed of light does. The speed of light does, because if
No,
we're only
not
6,000
evolution.
years old, then light could have only traveled 6,000 years, unless God, when he created, like, okay, we've got galaxies and stars that we can see 13 billion light years away,
But
right? So
that's
it
not
takes 1
evolution.
year for light to travel. It takes 13 billion years for light to travel that distance. It's about 6 trillion miles or something, I think,
Right.
per
The
year.
theory of evolution is about biology. It's a biological.
No,
thing to do with-
it's not. No. There's you want to look this up. Get on your internet search engine now and search
Well,
it
it is.
cosmic
Biological
evolution.
evolution is one thing, and cosmic evolution is
Okay.
another. But it's
I-
all part of the same story. Yeah.
But they're not. It's not like the theory of evolution is not got anything to do with.
Yeah, it
cosmic-
does, because at the beginning of the Big Bang,
the Big
they
Bang don't have
say
anything to do with evolution.
pardon?
The Big Bang doesn't have anything to do with evolution.
Well,
Biological.
it sort of
evolution.
does. It sort of does in the sense it does,
Sort of doesn't.
because the reason it does it
You're taking like 3 different theories of that are
no.
different. They're separate scientific theories, and you're mashing them together. There's the Big Bang is one, and then you've got we don't even have a theory for abiogenesis, but that's
No.
sort of a different field. And then you've got evolution. All evolution is about like biological
not.
evolution.
No, it's not.
It's only
No, it's
about
not.
the
No, can I just
the
tell you why you're
complexity of
wrong
life.
quickly? Can I tell you why you're wrong? Evolution is about everything, because in the Bible it says, now listen, it says God
Well,
created
neither did
everything.
either.
But wait a minute. Just let me say, God created everything ex nihilo, out of nothing. And evolution says that everything, like the Bible has an explanation from the very beginning to the very end, and evolution's explanation of the beginning, right, for them to explain it without a creator, is to say that this magic dot was popped into existence, that inflated
That has
it
nothing
with
to do with
zero
evolution.
energy. Wait a minute. This magic dot, this singularity, had zero energy in it and inflated at 10 to the 58. Now, we've got a beginning to the universe in our Bible. That's their beginning. That's the evolutionist beginning. Yes, it does. It
But it
absolutely
don't
does.
have anything to
If
do-
you,
theory of
but if you
evolution
speak-
does not speak to anything about the Big Bang.
yes, it does.
not-
Yes,
that
it
was
does.
just
See, this
something.
is, you're ignorant of that. You're ignorant of that
I'm
fact. I'm not calling you
ignorant. I know what I'm
stupid.
talking about.
I'm not
No,
calling you
she-
stupid. You do.
She
You're wrong.
understands that she differentiates between biological evolution and cosmic
Yes, I know.
evolution.
I know what she's
Totally
trying to
different
say.
theories.
She's trying to say.
Yeah,
that
they're different. They're different
evolution-
theories, exactly.
Yes,
they're-
they're,
I mean,
different
they're all-
theories, but
they're
they're
all
a part of the same theory. How do you
story
explain?
in
Okay,
some way,
how do you explain the beginning of everything without a God? If
I
you
don't have
believe
to
that
explain
everything,
it. All I
But
did
how
was
did, okay. Now wait. Let me say this. Let
Do
me
you get
finish.
excited?
Let me
Easy?
just let me finish, please. Please, I'm begging you, let me finish. Just let me finish this. So if you have this, oh fuck, I've lost it. The speed of light. Oh fuck, I lost it. I completely.
Did you lose
lost
it?
Anyway.
I'm sorry, Robin. I see your point, Robin. I mean, this is cosmic. This is more like speed of light stuff, where it's not really biological evolution. But like, I also see Jason where he's coming
No,
from, where he's
you
like, it's all
have to
part of
have
the
a
same
beginning.
story.
That's it.
you
That's
know.
what I was going to say. If you've
Yeah.
got a universe that's got matter and energy that's eternal, right? If you believe that matter and energy is eternal and the universe is eternal, then you believe in matter and energy. Matter is energy. You believe in energy that's from everlasting to everlasting, just like God. But then
Well,
you'll turn around and say,
Well, you
how
have
did
to
God
ask her
do
if
it?
she does, though. You
How
have
does
to ask.
But
her. You can't
wait
just
a minute. This is what people say. It doesn't matter. And so
Yeah.
if you You know what I'm
All right.
saying?
How did
Kind
your
of.
universe start? You told me I had to have an answer. How did yours?
That's true.
That's the answer. Our answer is God spoke it all into existence, ex nihilo, out of nothing. Their answer is that nothing
God
made
spoke
everything out of nothing.
out of
Mhm.
nothing.
It's literally, you don't even know your own. You
You're
don't
the
even know
one-
your
Well,
own.
she does. It's God of the gaps. It's
Believes
God of the
things
gaps
came from
versus.
nothing, not me.
I'm sorry. Go ahead,
No,
Robin.
Okay,
ahead,
so
Robin.
you believe you've only got two choices. You've only got
Wait,
everything
Jason,
started
Jason.
from nothing, or
I
matter and
gotta
energy
hear
was
Robin's
eternal from
side
everlasting.
first.
Oh, this is where it goes. You've got to stop. Or matter and energy is eternal from everlasting to everlasting. You've only got two options. You've either got something beginning from nothing, or you've got matter and energy that's eternal from everlasting to everlasting. You've only got two options as an evolutionist. That's it.
No,
None
no.
others. Well, which
There's no-
one do you
there's-
subscribe to? Do
there's-
you believe that
there's
matter and
nothing-
energy is from
Okay,
everlasting to
first of all-
everlasting?
No, hang on. Now let Robin talk. Let Robin
Yeah.
say.
Yeah, for a minute.
I
I can
haven't
probably
been
get
able to
louder
finish a thing
than
off.
you. First of all, I don't have just two choices because you don't know
Yes, you
what
do.
all choices there could be. There could have been something that brought the universe into existence that failed that doesn't exist anymore. It could have been here at the time of the beginning of the universe and created the universe and then doesn't exist anymore. We don't know what it is.
Around when,
I mean,
when
I don't
absolutely
know.
nothing was around.
Yeah, that's a
Forever.
third option.
I mean,
That
there's
is a
all
third
kinds of
option.
there's all kinds of
Some reason.
options that you can think of. You
Yeah.
can think of
But it was
countless
around.
options.
Would have had to have been around. While there was no time, no space, no matter forever. Before
mean,
there
it
was
was-
time, space, and matter.
Okay.
So, and then all of a
Where
sudden
did
it
God come
disappeared.
from then? Where did God come from?
That's exactly right. Well, where did your eternal matter and energy come from?
I didn't say
How
I
does
had
matter?
eternal
Okay,
matter.
I can throw that.
But she
right back
doesn't.
at you.
She doesn't have to even have like a thesis or a statement
Yes,
thesis.
she
'cause
does.
She's
Yes, she
just
does.
Robin.
Because because atheism. Yes, you do. Atheism, and evolution are inexplicably linked because atheism
Well,
believes
But I mean,
that
she doesn't
wait a
have
minute,
to
there was a
decide
beginning to the
like for
universe without
herself.
any creator. There was a
You do
beginning to
know
the
there are
universe
lots of
without.
there are lots of Christians who believe in evolution, right? Like
Absolutely.
around
Yeah,
the
start-
world, there are millions of Christians who believe in evolution.
Oh yeah, BioLogos, which is the main creationist organization, they push the evolution, theological evolution narrative.
I
Actually.
mean, most all creationists, like young Earth creationists and stuff, are in America. Other countries don't even have that, except for like Africa.
Man,
Most
Are you
my
kidding me?
standards
I'm
toward God.
Australian.
That is
Are you kidding me? I'm in Australia. I'm in Tasmania, Australia.
Well, there's a
Well,
lot
that
of
kind of
me
blew
that
up.
only
But
Africa
there's a
has
lot of
young
people
Earth
who are not
creation.
young Earth creationists.
It's the whole
Australia.
world.
Were you like Ken Ham neighbor or something?
Well, yeah, I like Ken Ham, but I don't believe everything that Ken Ham says is true just because
He
I
built
like
his boat
him.
in my
for
state.
sure,
I live
for
in the
sure.
same state where his boat is.
it's true. It's true, Jason. She's near the arc.
Anyway, I'm not going to get upset.
You know what?
because
You know what?
it's
Here's my
video.
thing about that arc is that they have those Packasitas. They're packing Packasitas on that arc, and I'm just like, oh, it's too funny. If you know what the
Okay, can we
pack,
watch
you know,
this?
hang on,
Can
you know what the
Can we
Packasitas
finish watching
is.
this video, please? Please, can we
I
just
mean,
finish watching? Can we?
Yeah, I
just
just
stop now
wanted to.
and
All right.
If
You're
you
right.
guys want
Are
to
you
chime
good?
in,
Are you good, Robin? You good?
I'm going to have to go get some milk in a minute. I just stopped in for a minute. Jason, I'm sorry I got you so tore up.
no, that's all right. Don't worry about it. Hey, I get angry all
No,
the
you're a
time, mate. I
sweetheart.
go
We
off
love
my
you
head. I'm
here,
just.
so.
As long as you're in
I'm a
Australia,
pain in
I
the
ain't too
neck.
worried about it. You can just throw
I
it
don't hold grudges. I
on.
don't hold grudges. I get angry and I go off my head. I do hold grudges for a little while sometimes, but it's very hard for me to hold a grudge. If for me to hold a grudge, I literally have to sit there and force myself to hold on to the grudge. It just goes away after a while. I can't hang on to it. So I'm not a grudge holding person, basically. I try to, but I can't. Yeah.
Me neither.
So don't worry, mate. If you go off at me and scream at me and tell me off, or I go over you and scream at you, tell you off, that doesn't mean the end of you coming on this channel. It's just the way I am and the way it is.
So, are you taking off, buddy, or are you hanging out for the movie?
Me,
Yeah.
I'm going to have to go get some milk.
All right. Hey,
Right.
drive safe.
God
and
bless you,
stuff.
sweetheart. Have a good day.
All right. Y'all have a good night. I'll listen. I'll be listening. See.
All right,
Okay.
buddy.
All right. Bye.
Take care. All right, let's play this thing. Get it rolling.
Okay, here we go.
I'm going to find out about distant
Is
starlight.
the fundamental difference between our two perspectives. I've noticed that when Hugh gets backed into a corner, when he has posed to him a question that he simply can't answer, or he's trying to defend a claim that he really can't defend, and he'll say, "Well, these other people agree with me," or let's have a debate, and we'll have these other people who are experts on the issue. And by the way, I'm fine with having other experts on the issue weigh in on this, but I think anyone who's knowledgeable of the physics of Einstein would not agree with you, Ross, on this issue anyway, because Einstein certainly didn't. Einstein agreed that the one-way speed of light was conventional and that there is no experiment you can do to measure it, even in principle, because the one-way speed of light defines how we determine what is simultaneous when two events are separated over space. But the way that scientists debate these issues, again, it's not in front of a panel of experts where it's a verbal debate. No, it's in the written literature. That way, any claim that Hugh makes that is dubious, I can check it, and that's fair to him too, because any claim that I make, he can check it. He can go and check the literature and so on. And so, if you really want to get to the truth of the issue and not just engage in posturing, the way you do it is in the written, peer-reviewed literature. And I'm very happy to engage Hugh in the peer-reviewed literature.
No, it isn't, because I believe in the authority of Scripture just as much as you do. It's a difference of interpretation.
All of experts to decide these things.
Okay.
I stand behind what I said, but I wish I'd answered that a little bit differently, because I do respect experts, and I think it's fine to bring in experts and say, here's this claim that we're making about physics. You're a physics expert. What do you have to say about that? That's fine. But a greater level of authority than that, a greater level of expertise would be to consult the peer-reviewed written literature. Because in that case, you've had several PhD physicists, PhD astronomers, astrophysicists that have looked it over, that have said this passes the muster. This is good stuff. And since it's published, it's out there. Anyone can look at it. It's open, it's objective. And if it has any errors in it, people will jump on it. But you see, when you just say something in a verbal dialogue like we're doing here, you can make all kinds of false claims, and it's very hard to very quickly demonstrate that that's wrong, because I can't pull up the paper right next to me that refutes that. So the written literature is superior to a panel of experts, because in written literature you have a panel of experts who have had plenty of time to think about the issues and have had time to go back and check all the references as well. That's a superior level. And beyond that, the Bible is my ultimate authority. It's superior even to the written literature, because it is written literature that's inspired by God and therefore inerrant. And for all Hugh's claims that, he believes in biblical authority too. But here's the problem. When you make man the interpreter, the ultimate guide to interpreting the scriptures, and I believe that's what Hugh's doing. He might say he's not, but I believe that's what he's doing. Then man is really your ultimate authority and not the scriptures. Yes, Hugh and I do have a difference of interpretation, but the Bible tells us how it ought to be interpreted. The Bible's self-interpreting, and I would argue that Hugh is not following the Bible's interpretation of itself, because the Bible tells us how to interpret days. It tells us how to interpret Genesis. Take a look at the way Jesus did. Take a look at the way the New Testament authors did. Under the inspiration of the Holy Spirit, they interpreted Genesis as literal history. Jesus said from the beginning of creation, God made them male and female. He obviously didn't believe that there were millions of years between the creation of the universe and the creation of human beings. And again, this issue of, but we're talking about the science of the age of the universe. I know, but ultimately, the age of the universe is something that the Bible addresses. And when something is addressed by Scripture, we need to take that as paramount. The science is secondary. Now, I think the scientific evidence strongly confirms biblical creation. All kinds of examples. We've mentioned some already. We didn't get to a lot of others that I could have mentioned. But ultimately, since the Bible does address the timescale of creation, namely it tells us God created in 6 days, there's a verse I can point to, Exodus 20:11, in 6 days the Lord made the heaven, the earth, the sea, and all that's in them. That settles the matter. The science is secondary, though I think it does confirm biblical creation.
And this is just coming from me, I'm not taking sides or anything, but if we do appeal to scholars who agree with you, isn't that going to be based upon the presuppositions that they bring to this issue? So that if they agree with the presuppositions that you have, which are related to how you interpret Genesis, that's going to affect how they interpret the data. So wouldn't the real debate be over the presuppositions with which we bring to the data, which then lead to the particular conclusions that we come to?
Exactly right. This really is an issue of differing presuppositions. I don't believe that Hugh Ross is epistemologically self-conscious. I don't believe that he's aware of his own presuppositions, except perhaps minimally. He holds to uniformitarianism, he'll admit to that, and to some degree naturalism, and he will verbally deny that. But we saw that when we talked about stars taking a certain amount of time to get their current configuration, and therefore not being supernaturally created. That's a form of naturalism. Yes, the debate is over presuppositions. And yes, if we had a panel of experts, they would be guided by their presuppositions. And so
Exactly what I said earlier about how it depends on the person on the panel, which, like, if you had a young earth creationist, a theistic evolutionist, an old earth creationist, and an evolutionist all judging on this, can you imagine the conflicting shit in the panel would be? It's just impossible to do a peer review, but it's just impossible to do a peer review unless you do it in writing on a website and you put up your evidence and then it's there forever. And that's why people like Hugh Ross and people like that don't want to do it in writing, because if they do it in writing, they're just going to end up they end up made look worse later on down the track, because, you know, so they're scared to commit, which is really pathetic, actually. I don't hate Hugh Ross because he's universalist. I just hate theistic evolutionism. I don't agree with universalism. I don't agree with that. But, you know, am I gonna censor people because they believe in that? No, I'm not. I'm not gonna act like the communists at big tech. Anyway, so here we go.
So hang on now.
if you did have a debate and you chose the
Let me add a little something here.
Yeah.
So this guy, he believes that light is slowed in different mediums, which is fine. But like, why does he believe, like, what's he working up to? Does he believe that light has been slowed down because the contents of the universe have changed over time?
No,
And that light was going infinitely faster at the beginning of his creation?
No. What he's saying is what Jason Lyle is saying is that. Sorry, that's my dog drinking at the moment. You can hear that. What Jason Lyle is saying is that the one-way speed of light can never be measured. It's impossible. It like, no matter how much our technology advances, it's impossible, because if you put one clock here and then another clock 30 meters away, to try and synchronize that is impossible. You cannot ever get it synchronized, because even 30 meters away, it's in a different time zone, right, to begin with. And then you've got to start the speed of light, which travels at 300,000 kilometers per second, and then measure it in the one way, which is impossible. The only way to measure the speed of light is by setting up with mirrors. You set up your counter, you test, and you put up a mirror, you flash the light into the mirror reflects the light back, and that's what you're measuring, the reflected light speed, not the one-way speed of light. You're not measuring the speed of light from one clock to another clock. You're measuring one-way speed of light from one clock to a mirror and then back to that clock, right? That's how they measure it. They cannot measure the speed of light just from one way. It's impossible to synchronize the clocks. It's impossible. It is literally impossible. It can never be done. Einstein himself said that. So anybody that says it can be done in all of human history, it doesn't matter if we advance for another million years with technology from now, still won't be able to measure it. And
so what's the point?
Their way around it, what he's doing is, Hugh Ross said that they can measure the one-way speed of light through the supernova, right, through gravitational lensing. So they know the one-way speed of light, whereas this is what Jason Lyle is refuting here.
So basically he's refuting that they know the constant speed of light, or the C.
Yes, there is no constant. Because Einstein himself said with the one-way speed of light, you can literally just pick whatever speed you want.
Sure.
Because Einstein literally said that. You just pick whatever speed you want, because it's impossible to measure, basically. That's what he meant. To get out of a whole lot of scientific Einstein.
MC squared.
Einstein
Okay, so
basically
he is
said-
the speed of light though in his well-known
Yeah, he's
formula.
talking about the one-way speed of light, which can never be measured. So if the speed of light in one direction is infinite, then that would solve all the problems of the speed of light, right, from distant galaxies, wouldn't it?
Well,
you would
well, it would solve the problem for the creationist that believes that light had to travel here.
Yeah, Doug's just laughing. And shush, go on. Doug's just laughing anyway. But it solves
So
it.
the problem,
it doesn't solve
problem we're trying to solve.
No,
by him
it doesn't
saying that
solve
we can't
anything
measure
for
the speed of
creationists.
light.
Wait a minute. It doesn't
Okay.
solve anything for creationists or evolutionists, but
Oh.
because it's unprovable, right? But
Oh.
what he's saying is there is no way to measure the one-way speed of light. And like Einstein said, we can just pick any one-way speed we want, but in reality, the one-way speed of light is probably infinite in one way. But then when you reflect that speed of light to measure it off a mirror, is the only way you can measure the speed of light. It's 300,000 kilometers per second. It's like when you shoot a bullet at something. Now the bullet's traveling at 3,000 foot per second when it leaves the end of the muzzle, right? Or say when it hits the piece of metal, right? And then it reflects off. It's reflecting off at a much slower speed, right? Right. Well,
Theoretically, but you
that's
can't
not-
measure the speed of light, right? Theoretically, when
That's
it
right.
refracts or when it reflects or goes through a
impossible.
medium, it slows down, but you can't measure the speed of light.
But you
Well,
can't.
how would you know?
Well, that's a different thing. That's a different thing. When light goes through a medium, it's
Oh.
literally you've got thousands of particles, billions of trillions of particles. And the more particles you put in water, say the more milk you add to the water, and as you try to pass the light through it, the slower the light will go through the water. Not because light is actually slowing down, but because light is hitting each particle, and then that particle has to move out of the way so light can progress to the next particle. Then that particle moves out of the way, and then light can progress to the next particle. You know what I mean? As
Uh-huh.
it's through the medium, the more particles you introduce, it creates a shadow effect as it's coming through. It doesn't actually slow light down. Light between hitting each particle is still doing 300,000 or 186,000 miles per second, right? It's not actually slowing down. It's just slowing it down because it's creating shadows and it has to force its way through all those particles. And by the time it forces its way through, it's only doing 38 miles per hour, but it's not really doing, it's still doing 300. It's really complicated, but at the same time, you can
Sure.
never, ever, and this is what he's trying to get across here. One of the things you can never, ever, for all time, it doesn't matter how much our technology progresses, we can never, ever measure the one-way speed of light, ever. It's
Not ever?
No, not ever.
Never
literally
say
possible.
never. You don't
No,
say never.
in this particular case, you can say never. In this particular case, you can say never. Look at it. Look into it.
Never's a very
Get-
long time, man. That's like forever.
Just get into it. Look into this thing. Look into the one-way speed
No, I
of
dig
light.
it. I dig it. But do you see where I'm coming
No,
from?
no, I
Like,
know you're
if you-
saying it for the other people that are watching. I understand, but I want them to look at the problems with measuring the one-way speed of light. Go into an internet search engine, preferably not Google because they're fucking useless. Google are absolutely useless these days. Go into Tor, the Tor browser, or Avast browser, and use Start Page when you Google stuff. Don't use Google. Google are a bunch of morons. Now go and Google this: the problems with one-way speed of light. The problems,
Okay.
not Google it, internet search it. Google are a bunch of morons. Internet search it. And then
Sure.
and you'll see the problems. And you can read the problems straight up. They'll just put it in an article where you don't have to read a technical paper to understand every technical word. They'll put it into an article and different articles. Read many different articles on it. Don't just read one like most people do and go, oh, that backs my idea, so I'm sticking with that. That's the folly that people get into. Read heaps and heaps of different articles and look at different views. Look at the creationist view, look at the old earth creationist view, look at the theistic creationist view, look at the evolutionist view, look at all these different views. Don't just, you know, anyway, so are we ready to go or what? You
No,
want to
no,
say-
I have a couple questions. I have a couple questions actually. So, like, you know, you have c, which is the constant speed of light, right?
Yeah.
The physical constant is represented by the lowercase c.
Yep.
Okay. Okay.
That's-
So we're not sure. We're not completely positive about the speed of light, right?
Yep.
Okay. But
Oh,
yeah,
no,
we can
no.
still.
No,
we can
we
still-
know this. No, we are positive about the speed
Okay.
of light in two ways. In the two-way speed of light, we're positive about that. We know 100% that light travels at 386,000 miles per hour.
But
or
didn't you just say that
300,000
we'll never be
kilometers
able
per
to measure the
second
speed
when
of
it's
light?
reflected off something? When it's reflected, but the one-way speed of light from the light to another measuring device, right?
All right.
Right? It's impossible. It's just impossible. You can never do it. Just all I say is this: to save a lot of questions and a lot of time, everyone just needs to go and internet search this. The problem with
no, don't do
measuring
that.
the problem with measuring the one-way speed of light. Just go and have a look at it. Go and have a look from the evolutionist perspective, and there is no other perspective. There's only one perspective. There's no creationist perspective on this, no evolutionist perspective. It's just one perspective from both sides. It is impossible. And go and have a look why it's impossible. Let's stop talking now and just watch the video.
No, I still have to finish my first question because I only got halfway through it. So the constant of the speed of light is represented by the lowercase c in physical formulas. You said that's right.
Well, whatever, I suppose so. That sounds like
right.
John Max.
All right. So, like, even if it is questionable, they still have it as a physical constant of the universe.
No,
Oh.
they don't.
Oh,
No, they don't. It's not a physical constant.
It's not.
Look it up. Just get on the internet and Google.
No, that's
the
fine. And I
problems-
know
I
that.
understand what you're doing, C Science. Just let me finish. I understand what you're
Okay.
doing. I
what am I
want
doing?
people to just look up. Let's stop talking about this now. I want everyone watching, if anybody's watching, I want them to look up the problems with measuring the one-way speed of light, and that will solve all your questions. You do not need me to say it here. It is all over the internet. There's hundreds of thousands of articles on this shit. So just go in there and have a look. And let's finish watching this. So what?
No, wait. I still haven't finished my question yet, though. You stopped me again halfway through the question because it's a two-part question. You know what I mean?
Okay, it has to be a one part with me because my I've got a Joe Biden brain, mate.
All right. So you have the constant speed of light, which is represented by the lowercase c in physical formulations. Physical formulas like E equals mc squared. The c is the constant speed of light, right? But we might not know the actual value of that.
Panelists, all of which are experts on
Sorry, I didn't mean
astronomy
that.
and physics, by the way.
Sorry.
Yeah,
it was an
yeah.
accident.
So we might not actually know the actual value, but you know, the m is supposed
But he's
to.
got to answer your question. If you keep watching the
I
video,
just
he'll
want to
answer
finish asking my question. Jeez. All right.
it. All right.
So the mass in the universe is represented by the letter M. Okay,
Yes, but mass is energy.
the uppercase.
Yeah.
Now listen, we don't know how much mass there is in the universe because we're discovering more and more stars all the time.
We do. We
Oh, we
know
do?
how much. We do know how much mass is in around about how much mass is in the known universe, but obviously,
Right.
not
But we're
the-
discovering
not-
more and more of the universe all the time. So we have no idea of the actual mass
Yes,
of the universe.
But we do. The known universe is this. Let me tell you how many atoms. Do you want to
No,
know?
hang
how
on.
many
I'm not
atoms
done making my point before you go
I
off
know
on that
that,
tangent.
but I want to say it anyway.
All right, say it anyway.
Atoms in the known universe are like this. There's 10 to the 80th. 10 with 80 zeros after it is how many atoms there is in the known universe.
Uh-huh.
Go on.
So anyway, so like the mass, we can't measure all the mass in the universe because we're continually finding more and more galaxies, right? And add exponentially to this mass. It's exponential because we're going out in a big circle. Okay. So every time we look even further and we find more and more galaxies, we're adding to this mass. We don't actually know the mass of all the matter in the universe. Okay, so this M value, this matter, all the matter in the universe, is unknown. The E, the energy, so E equals mc squared, right? So all the energy in the universe equals all the mass in the universe times the constant speed of light squared. That's what they're trying to say with that. Right.
Yes.
So now
yes,
Einstein,
I
he said
know,
that
but
the
you know
constant speed
what?
of light, that was not constant for him. He said that varied. So
Yes,
and
but
I
the
and I
constant
recognize it, and I
speed of
know that's
light
what you
they're
were
talking,
saying. Yes, that's what you were saying.
it's the reflection of
So my
light that they're
point
talking
is
about.
is that they don't
Constant,
know the
not
actual values of any of these
no,
numbers.
no. They don't know the
Right,
values of
right.
a one-way speed of light.
Now,
I
how
mean, we're
hard
just
was that
getting
to
back.
get the one question out? And you agreed with
No,
me
I
at the
know,
end.
but I had to keep on. Like, well, I couldn't wait till the end to refute all of everything you said. I had to come in.
Why were you
and
trying
get
to
that.
refute what I said if you agreed with me at the end?
There were certain things that you said that not refute, but respond then.
Oh,
Right,
all right,
to
all
what
right.
you said. It's not like if you're going to keep saying these things like that, I need to be able to jump in every now and then, like I
Sure,
did, and
sure.
and say what I said. I mean, I'm not going to sit here taking little notes, like a note of this little point he made and that little point he made. No,
Why
I'm
not?
not going to do.
Why not?
Well,
That's what I do.
because basically I already answered you. Everything you asked me, I'd already answered earlier. I'd already spoken about this.
Oh, you talked
So
about the physical constants, this physical constant, the speed of light.
the physical
And
constant of the speed of light is brought
yeah,
about by this simple fact, is that we can only measure the two-way speed of light. That's the physical constant they're talking about. They're not talking about they can never measure. Look, it's so easy. We could look. Can we just watch the rest of this video? Because it's so easy for people. This is something that's on the internet everywhere. It's not
all
something
right.
that they'll get.
They can just
40
look it up
million
on
different-
Google.
Wait a minute.
All right.
Wait a minute. It's not something they'll get 50 million different answers on, as you usually do with things. This is something they're going to get pretty much the same answer on, whatever article they read about this. So this is something we don't need to explain to them. They can just get
Sure.
onto the freaking internet.
One more thing. I just wanted to
search.
summarize something, Jason, before you go on. Is that we have different positions, as you know, about this distant starlight problem. See, it's not a problem for me, because I just say God did it.
Well,
Okay, I got
that's
the
right.
ultimate
And
free
you
lunch.
should be able to say that. I believe God did it too. I believe
good.
God just did it. But we
Well,
need
see, but
to
I believe that
have-
God
if we-
did it.
If we just
like
come
the
along
Bible
and
says.
say God just did it, if we come along and say to the atheist, we're trying to reach atheists here. We're not speaking to the converted, right? Right.
Mhm.
So if we come along and just say the Bible view, what you just said, they're just going to switch off. They're just going to go, oh, there's no freaking argument here. They believe this, we believe that. Goodbye. So how are you going to ever reach?
Well, that's
anyone
how you
with
see
that
it.
sort of
That's how you see
mentality?
it. But you also have to realize that some of these people might actually understand some basic physics.
Yes, that's
so
right.
if you
but
come at
most
them
people
and you're
don't.
like, yes,
Hey, Doug,
yes,
Doug, you've
the
been to
only way it would
university.
ever
How
work,
many people do you know that
the
have
only
got
way it would
3 or
ever
4
work is if
PhDs
God
that are dumb as
made
shit?
the light already reaching the earth
Quite a
from
few.
across the universe. Otherwise, light wouldn't be
Mate,
here.
can we just finish watching this and stop breaking this video up, please? So we
Oh,
can.
I'm sorry.
get
Yeah, all
what
right.
he's
Let's finish the
saying.
video. Play on.
If
Play
we
on. Play
keep
on.
breaking it up, people are going to miss the point.
All right. Play on.
Most astrophysicists, most physicists, most astronomers
What? All right. So here we go.
are not Christians to begin with. Most of them hold to the secular time scale. And that's because of their presuppositions. They are trained to look at the evidence in a particular way. But yes, the outcome of what they here's how we vote, and we think this guy's the winner of the debate. But that doesn't really establish anything. The truth of the matter ultimately is established by God in the scriptures. Secondarily, written literature should give you a good guide as to who's in the right, at least when it comes to technical scientific issues, peer-reviewed literature. And then you can at least investigate what are the presuppositions of the author, what assumptions is he making? Because in a research paper, you have to spell out your logic. You have to explain how you drew the conclusion that you drew.
Right.
And people can look at it and they can say, yeah, I agree with his data, but I disagree with that particular premise that he's using to draw the conclusion that he's drawing. That's why peer-reviewed literature is the way to go in discussing these kinds of technical issues. The thing is, though, the conventionality thesis has been discussed in the peer-reviewed literature. It's just Hugh Ross seems to not be aware of it. This issue has been, I won't say
I just
completely
thought of
settled.
something before we finish this video. Just let me see if I got my speaker on. Before we finish this video, I just want to, if my computer ever loads, it'll be a miracle. Okay. So here's one that I just want to put on now. This one video.
Well, I mean, if
before
you're
we
going to
finish
take a minute, I'd like to explain my view of creation and this distant starlight problem. I mean, you can give your view too, but I'd love to give mine because I think it makes more sense.
Oh, could we wait until all this is finished? Oh, okay, go on. Go.
Okay. So basically, young Earth creationists make a problem out of nothing with this distant starlight because the Bible says that the universe and the Earth was created with the starlight already reaching the Earth in the week it was created. There was no real amount of time that it took for the light to get here because God created it that way with the light already reaching the Earth. The physical constant speed of light has always been the same. Okay, it could be slowed down, but it's always been the same. I don't have a distant starlight problem because the distant starlight was already here, according to my model. However, the young Earth creationists that believe they have to have the distant starlight spanning through the universe, eventually reaching this planet in just 6,000 years, they have a problem. That's about it.
No, they don't have a problem, mate. No, they don't. And but what I mean is this, is if you're trying to convert, you're not preaching to the converted, right? You're not preaching like on, say, Rumble, where they've got rid of all the God haters and the atheists. It's like preaching to the converted. You're not preaching to the converted, right? You're trying to preach and make evolutionists understand, right? So if you just say every time, which I believe what you just said. I believe that. That's what I believe. But if you
good,
just
that's
say
what the Bible says.
every single fucking time that, oh, God did it. Well, how are we going to get any evolutionists to interact with us? How are we going to do that?
Well, by getting them
Look,
to
all these
realize
evolutionists,
that their argument
no,
is
they don't
basically
realize because they're
the
as full
Big
as shit.
Bang did it, So like every time that they fall back on this
they
lack of
always say,
understanding.
you're wrong about this, mate. You're wrong. They
What?
always say the Big Bang has nothing to do with evolution. Like that woman just said, it's got to do with biology.
She's right. The Big Bang
Cosmic
doesn't have
evolution
anything to do with biological evolution or abiogenesis.
It does,
but it's
because you cannot have chemical fucking evolution on the planet.
Well, it's a
without
precursor.
Without a beginning.
It is a
to that
precursor.
chemical evolution, right?
You can't
You
have one
cannot
without
have
the
a
other, and
fucking-
it's all part of the story of evolution.
Mate, look, let's watch this. Let's stop cutting
Okay,
him off.
yeah, no, let's watch
Let's
the video.
let
You're right.
him
You're right.
finish and
Let's
let
watch the
him
video.
talk
You're
about
right.
this, because every time we cut this off, people are missing the whole point. And that's
I'm
the
sorry.
thing I'm on about. Now let's listen to this video.
Yeah, play on.
Wait a minute, before we finish the Jason Lyle video, we got another video here, which is really interesting. I need you to watch this first to give you an idea, because obviously Sea Science and that other woman has made me realize that we need to watch this video first. So here we go.
Well, what you've made me realize is that you won't let me explain that point of view either. Like, because you're hearing one thing and I'm saying another thing.
Mate, all you're trying to do is trying to say God did it, everything. And when you say that, if I started a creation science channel and I just said, well, my explanation is God did it, that's it, we would never get one convert from evolution, not one. Every single evolutionist would just go, These guys are fuckwits and fucking.
And
move
what I
on.
was trying to say
No
over you
explanation
before,
for them.
what I was trying to
Well,
say over
how
you
about
before
they need the explanation
was that
before
what we
they
need
can
to
move
do is
towards God?
explain to them that their lack of or at their edge of understanding that they adhere to some Big Bang explanation. So theirs is a Big Bang of the gaps explanation.
Yes, but they always deny that. They always say that there's no Big
Well, let
Bang.
them deny it.
Big
If
Bang
they
has
just have
nothing to
plain
do with
denial, then it
evolution,
proves
and
they're
it bloody well
wrong.
does. I know what,
What?
you're trying to say, C-Science, but
Well, I'm glad
please,
that you believe that the light of the stars was already reaching the earth in the week that it was all
I
created.
believe that. Of course it was. Of course God created the freaking light in transit. Of course when we have a supernova, right? Wait a minute. Of course when we have a supernova, it and they try to, it's all bullshit. But the only way to explain this to these cunts is through fucking science, you fucking dumbass. You can't just say God did it. If you just say, oh, okay, what's the point in even having a creation science channel? It's like this. It's like this. Okay, so I've got a creation science channel and I start it up every day and I just say, my answer to everything is God did it. That's it. Goodbye. And then that's it. So what's the point in even coming up here and talking? Now
You
let's
use
watch
science and
Let's
reason
watch this
to
speed of
get
light.
to the.
This.
Hang on, let me talk too. I mean, I'm the host of this show anyway, too. So, what you do is you explain to them using reason and science. You see, if we have the explanation being God of the gaps, you point out the fact that they have Big Bang of the gaps as their explanation to fall back on.
Like they say that the Big Bang has nothing to do with biological evolution, with evolution, like that last woman
But
said.
Jason, we're not
Every
discussing
evolutionist out there
biological
believes-
evolution, man.
And we just watch this video, please.
But Jason, we're not discussing biological evolution. We're discussing the distant starlight problem.
Did I say
That's
we were
cosmological evolution.
Oh my Lord!
It's
Did
two
I
different
say that we were
topics,
discussing-
and that was what Robin's
I
point
didn't
was. But
say
you
that.
wouldn't
You
let
missed what I
you
said.
wouldn't let her talk
I
to even
said
see her
they
point,
say
man.
biological evolution. You're talking over the top of me. Biological
Yeah, I am.
evolution.
You're right. I am talking over the top of you. I'm
Yes,
saying that you wouldn't
because I
even let
knew it, but you
Robin
got it wrong, mate.
explain
Let
her
this
side.
video play out,
Okay.
please.
I'm just saying. You don't want to hear other people's sides, but you want to shout over everybody else.
So I will kill
That's
you.
what's
About
real.
hearing on equal sides, mate. You've fucking gone over this umpteen times. How is people in the chat going to be able to discern between what we're saying or anything unless they get the science behind
I don't
it?
think the
Let's
people in
watch
the
this.
chat know what the heck we're talking
Just
about. with
one
this
small
one.
empty.
To be real.
This video was sponsored by KiwiCo. More about KiwiCo at the end of the show.
Oh, KiwiCo, man.
I know what you're thinking.
Get me one of those.
No one has measured the speed of light. That's ridiculous. The speed of light is exactly 299,792,458 meters per second. We are so sure of it that since 1983, we've actually used the speed of light to define how long a meter is. It's just the distance light travels in a vacuum in 1/299,792,458 of a second. That definition ensures that the speed of light is exactly this number, no decimals.
When they say in a vacuum, they mean in a vacuum reflected off a mirror. You've got one clock. You can only have one clock. See, he's laughing. He's
Well, I had a picture of someone throwing a vacuum at a mirror.
See, science. They actually do a test here. They actually do a test that measures it here.
Hear me out.
All right.
In this video, I will prove to you that light may never actually travel at this speed. And I can say that because no one has actually measured it. We can't measure the speed of light the same way we measure the speed of anything else.
And welcome back to this U.S. Open office.
Was that a
plan.
potato
Miller
gun?
just lobbed a message way
was
over
that?
Jones's head using some.
Come on, mate.
I think we're recording everywhere. What are we doing?
This is a video about measuring the speed of stuff.
Okay.
Tell me about how you measured the speed of the baseball fired out of your cannon.
Well, to get the speed of the baseball, you need to know two things. You need to know the distance between 2 points, and you need to know the time that it takes the baseball to travel between those points. So basically, we took distance divided by time, and that's the speed of the baseball. And in our case, we were shooting with a high-speed camera. So you basically just count the frames, and then your clock is internal. Oh, you're going relativity. You're going to do something weird, aren't you?
You saw it coming. I can't believe it.
Oh, man.
The thing I want to ask you about is the speed of light.
Okay.
Could you measure the speed of light like this? Imagine you have a laser that can fire a beam through a perfect vacuum for 1 kilometer. Start a timer the instant you fire the laser beam, and then exactly when it hits the end, stop the clock. Except, how do you know when light reaches 1 kilometer if you and the clock are at the starting point? Okay, so you need 2 clocks. One at the laser and one at the end, which stops automatically when it detects the laser light. But now, how do you make sure your 2 clocks are synchronized? Well, you could connect them via a wire and send a pulse from one to the other, but that pulse will travel at the speed of light, so it will arrive with a time delay. You might think you can just subtract that time delay, but it is equal to the time it takes for light to travel 1 kilometer. That's what we don't know and are trying to measure. Okay, new plan. Start with the clocks together and sync them up first, and then send one of the clocks down to the end. Now, what could possibly go wrong? Well, I'll tell you. The clock at the finish line was moving with respect to the one at the start, and special relativity tells us moving clocks tick slow relative to stationary observers. So by the time the clock reaches 1 kilometer, it will no longer be in sync with the clock at the start. Can I tell you the only solution to this problem? Ditch the second clock. Put a mirror at the end to reflect the light back, and use a single clock at the start to time the full 2 kilometer round trip.
Wasn't this actually done before? He was on a mountain, and there's a wagon wheel with a lantern, and there's something like a mirror on the other side of the mountain. I've always wanted to do this.
So that sounds a little like how the speed of light was first experimentally measured by Hippolyte Fizeau in 1849. He shone a beam of light between the teeth of a rapidly spinning gear to a mirror up on a hill 8 kilometers away. And then by increasing the speed of the gear, he reached a point where the reflected light passed through the next gap on the gear, and so it was observed. So he measured the speed of light to be 313,000 kilometers per second, which is within 5% of the presently accepted value.
So someone has measured the speed of light. Or have they? What has been measured is the round trip or two-way speed of light, but no one has measured the one-way speed of light.
One thing I'm going to throw at you, and I'm just going to come out and tell you. It's like, what if the speed of light in this direction is different from the speed of light in this direction?
Then that sounds like a Veritasium video.
The question is, could you figure it out? The kind of crux of this problem is that the only way people have managed to measure the speed of light is for a round trip. No one's ever managed to measure the speed of light in just one direction. It's possible that the speed of light is half of c in one direction and then instantaneous on the return journey.
What?
That's possible.
Are you serious?
Think about communicating with an astronaut stranded on Mars. Let's call him Mark. We send out a signal and get a response 20 minutes later. So we imagine our signal takes 10 minutes to get there, and the reply takes 10 minutes to come back. But it's possible that our message took all 20 minutes to get there, and the reply came back instantaneously. There's no way we could tell the difference between these two scenarios.
But why would the speed of light be different? Well, it's possible that there is some preferred direction through space-time. I mean, our universe has a lot of symmetries, but there is also some asymmetry. For example, why is there so much matter relative to antimatter? And physicists have worked out internally consistent theories of physics in which the speed of light is different forwards and in reverse. The speed of light could vary by just a few percent, up to, at the extreme, going c/2 in one direction and infinitely fast in the other direction.
Okay, so let me figure this out. So, yeah, I kind of don't believe you. I kind of don't believe you.
I love these guys. This is what Sea Science and I were arguing about. Here we go. Here you go, Sea Science. Here's your answer.
I don't believe you that light is a different speed in one direction but in the other. But I know you well enough to know that you wouldn't call me and put a camera on me unless you knew you were right. And that's what scares me about this conversation. That scares me.
Now, you might think it is just simpler that light should travel at the same speed in all directions, but the truth is that is a convention rather than an experimentally verified fact. Einstein himself pointed this out in his famous 1905 paper on the electrodynamics of moving bodies. He spends the first couple of pages on the problem of synchronizing clocks at different locations A and B. And he says, there is no way that we can meaningfully compare the times they measure unless we establish by definition that the time required by light to travel from A to B equals the time it requires to travel from B to A. He's essentially defining that the speed of light in opposite directions is the same. And he puts by definition in italics to remind us that this is only a convention. It's known as the Einstein synchronization convention. So the idea that the speed of light is the same in opposite directions, as Einstein would later write, is neither a supposition nor a hypothesis about the physical nature of light, but a stipulation that I can make of my own free will to arrive at a definition of simultaneity. That sounds a lot more subjective than how I think most people would imagine the speed of light is defined.
Dude, this is hardcore. I've never thought about this.
I didn't think about this before either. I always assumed that when we said the speed of light is c, we meant the one-way speed of light. There's no way to define the one-way speed of light. So the only thing we can really define is the two-way speed of light.
Just look at the way Einstein defines c. It's for the round trip from A to B and back.
I don't know if you saw in your physics classes, but whenever there was a light clock, it would always bounce the light up and then back. You would never see a light clock just bounce light one way. And this is why. The only thing we can be certain is constant for all inertial observers is the two-way speed of light.
For over 100 years, scientists have tried to find a way around this, to measure the one-way speed of light by itself. Here is a paper published in the American Journal of Physics in 2009 that claims to measure the one-way speed of light. And here is the paper debunking this study, pointing out that these authors were actually measuring the two-way speed of light. But I'm imagining you might have some ideas for how to measure the one-way speed of light, so let's go through some of them. Can't we just use a high-speed camera that shoots at 1 trillion frames a second so we can actually see light passing through an object? The problem is, you're not only seeing the light pass through the object, you're also seeing it bounce back to the camera, measuring the two-way speed, not one-way.
There you go.
Lucidchart makes intelligent diagramming easy and helps your best ideas become real.
Here you go. Get a spool of fiber optic cable, I don't know, like 186,000 miles. And you could shine the light here and you have the other end of the fiber here and you could shine here and then wait and see the delay, see if it's 1 second later over here.
The thing is, like, that fiber is going around and around and around. So it could be that when the light goes this way over the top of the loop, it goes slower. And then when it goes on the bottom, it goes faster. It all averages out in the fiber. And you're essentially getting lots of round trips in that fiber. So you're never getting a one-way.
What if you center a synchronizing device between your two clocks and send out simultaneous pulses? Well, if the speed of light is the same in both directions, this perfectly synchronizes your clocks. But if the speed of light is different in each direction, one of the clocks will be ahead of the other. And it will be ahead by just the right amount, so that when you measure the speed of light, you'll find the value to be c, even though that was not the speed the light was traveling. This is the same reason GPS synchronized clocks won't work. The whole GPS system is based on the assumption that the speed of light is the same in all directions. If the speed of light is different in different directions, the light pulses from satellites will travel at different speeds, so the clocks won't be properly synced. By that I mean they will always measure c for the one-way speed of light, whether it is or isn't. How about starting with synchronized clocks in the middle and moving them apart with equal and opposite speeds? That way the time dilation for each clock will be the same and they'll still be synchronized when they reach the endpoints.
But again, this only works if the speed of light in each direction is the same. If the speed of light depends on direction, then so does time dilation. You might think you could move the clocks really, really slowly so that time dilation is negligible. But if the speed of light is different in different directions, you can't just use the standard formula to calculate what that time dilation would be. I mean, it could be a lot worse than you think.
So the reality is we're stuck. We need synchronized clocks to measure the one-way speed of light, but we need to know the one-way speed of light in order to synchronize our clocks. Now, this might sound like just an academic concern, so I want to go through an example to illustrate just how differently the universe works if the speed of light is not the same in all directions.
Let's say on Mars, Mark is trying to synchronize his clock with the Earth. At noon, Mission Control sends out a message that says this signal was sent at exactly 12 o'clock. When Mark receives this message, he uses the Einstein synchronization convention to set his clock. He knows the round-trip time delay is 20 minutes, so he assumes the signal must have taken 10 minutes to reach him. He programs his clock to 12:10 p.m. and sends a return message. This reply sent at 12:10. The message is received on Earth at 12:20 p.m., so both parties know the synchronization was successful. When the clock reads 12:20 on Earth, it simultaneously reads 12:20 on Mars. But now consider what happens if the speed of light is not the same in both directions. Let's say it is c/2 from Earth to Mars, and then instantaneous from Mars back to Earth. No one knows this, of course, so they continue to use the Einstein convention. The message is sent from Earth, but now it takes a full 20 minutes to reach Mars.
Just let me say this. With this particular type of thing, anyway, I lost my train of thought. I apologize. Let's keep going.
Oh, okay. Do you mind if I add something quick?
Yeah, go.
So is he trying to say that light is infinitely fast in its first
Yes,
trajectory?
in one direction, it's infinitely fast, and when it reflects off the something that it's slower, right? And that makes sense when you think of a bullet. When you shoot a bullet at say a mild, like a 338 Lapua Magnum at a mild piece, a 1 inch thick mild piece of steel, right? When it hits that mild piece of steel, it'll create a borehole and then reflect back, and that thing those projectiles, or even if it's one projectile reflecting back, will be slower, right? Here we go. Now we're starting to understand.
Yeah, well, but the universe is supposed to be, or the known universe is supposed to be 96 billion light years across. So even if the speed of light was 10 times faster than it's supposed to be, it still wouldn't solve the problem.
No, it's not 10 times faster in one way. Just listen. In one way. You're talking. In one way, the speed of light goes in one direction, right? We can never measure that one direction. We can only measure the reflected speed of light. It's impossible to synchronize clocks. Let's let them keep explaining and understand.
But Mark doesn't know this, and as before, he assumes the signal took 10 minutes to reach him, so he sets his clock to 12:10 p.m., even though on Earth it is now 12:20. Mark then sends this reply sent at 12:10 p.m., which is instantaneously received on Earth at 12:20 Earth time. The experience for the two communicators is the same. The same messages were received with the same local time delays, but their clocks are out of sync by 10 minutes. What they think is the same moment for the other observer actually isn't, and there is no way they can ever recognize
what they think is the same.
Anyway. Or correct this error. Imagine if someone on Earth immediately responded, "How long did this message take to reach you? It's now 12:20. Well, the message would take 20 minutes to reach Mars, but due to the clocks being out of sync, it would arrive at 12:30 Mars time, so Mark would reply 10 minutes, a message that would instantaneously reach the Earth at 12:40 Earth time. The space-time diagram shows how there is flexibility in what you consider to be the same moment at two different locations, and in how you define the one-way speed of light. Einstein chose the convention where the one-way speed of light is always the same, but from an experimental perspective, any other convention is just as valid, up to and including one where the speed of light is c/2 one way and instantaneous the other way. And in that case, it's interesting to
That
think
looks
about
like a
what
weird
each
app.
observer is seeing when they look at the other. Mark would be seeing the Earth as it was 20 minutes ago, but Earth is seeing Mars in real time, exactly as it is right now. And this effect wouldn't stop at Mars. Look beyond it, and you could see stars hundreds of light years away. Not as they looked centuries ago, but exactly as they
Oh, these guys are atheists, by the way. Just let me add that one in.
are right this instant. One of the things is you only know about that light when it reaches you. And you don't know anything about what journey it took to get to you. You just see it and it's there. So like it's instantaneous. So an instantaneous interpretation of that light is just as good as one where it takes C to reach us.
This is breaking my brain. Yeah. I mean, it's kind of unknowable, isn't it?
It's breaking you. Like that woman that was on before. It was breaking her brain as well.
It is unknowable. That's the whole point of the video. Is to say, we've all agreed, and this is based on something Einstein wrote in 1905, we've all agreed to just say, it's C in every direction. But the truth is, the physics...
So what he means is that Einstein said that in one direction, it can be infinite. In the other direction, it's not infinite. But what Einstein said was in both directions, they're the same, which is a massive contradiction. And anyway, let's listen.
Physics works the same, whether it's C or whether it's C/2 and instantaneous, or anything in between. As long as the round trip works out to be C, none of physics breaks. And that's the crazy thing.
So if we can never measure the one-way speed of light, and if it makes no difference to any of the laws of physics, then what's the point in even talking about it? Well, that is certainly one valid perspective in a debate that has been ongoing since 1905. Some physicists appeal to Occam's razor. Isn't it just simpler if light travels at the same speed in all directions? No. Most working physicists just accept the convention and move on with their lives. But I think it's important to point out that it is just a convention, not an empirically verified fact.
There you go. Not an empirically verified fact.
Personally, I find it fascinating that this is something about the universe that is hidden from us. Sure, the round trip speed of light is c, but does the one-way speed even have a well-defined value? And if it doesn't, what does that mean for the concept of simultaneity? When is right now on Mars? And does it even make sense to talk about things happening at the same time if they're separated by distance?
Guys. God bless
Maybe
you, brothers.
This is an odd quirk of the universe and there's no good reason for it. Or maybe when physics takes the next paradigmatic leap, our inability to measure the one-way speed of light will be the obvious clue to the way general relativity, quantum mechanics, space, and time are all connected. And we'll wonder why we didn't see it before.
Well, that's just a load of shit. Anyway.
Yeah.
Hey, this video was sponsored by KiwiCo. They
all right, kill it.
create awesome projects and toys to get kids making. I use their crates with my son, and they are a lot of fun while also being educational. Now, for viewers of this video, they are offering 50% off your first month of any crate. Just go to kiwico.com/veritasium50.
We don't need the whole commercial.
Kids is doing a lot of at the moment, who is now 4. But the kit I'm actually showing. Now, can I just tell you how useful it is to have a box?
This.
All right.
There you go, brother.
So do you want to watch your other video before we review this stuff?
All right. Okay. Let's go on to the other video. All right.
Oh, you want to watch the other video before we touch base on this one?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's a good
You think so? Okay.
I think so. Hang on a second.
And I don't think that what you were claiming about Robin's argument was quite correct, because I don't think she even talked about the speed of starlight or distance starlight problem. So she was just pointing out the fact that cosmic evolution and biological evolution are two different things, but part of the same story. Obviously, I think we'd all agree about that.
I think God punishes those that fucking act like communist pieces of shit. Myself,
Yeah.
but
So
I like-
basically, I think that what's another thing that was revealed in that last video was that basic physics students understand that the constant speed of light isn't necessarily what it's claimed to be, and that even Einstein admitted that the speed of light isn't constant, but he decided on a certain constant value so he could write his formulations, which is what I was trying to explain in the beginning to you, which you agreed upon.
Yes,
So I don't know
know
what you were laughing about,
you-
but
we
but
could have-
but you laughed the whole way through like it was something was being proven to somebody. The whole fact of
It's
the matter
not. I
is
never said it was
these
something
values
was
such as like M and E and C, they're not quite decided upon because we don't really know all the mass in the universe because the entire universe hasn't been explored yet.
You know the mass
We don't
and
know
the
all
no-
the energy in the entire universe because which is represented by the capital letter E, and we don't know that. But we
But
don't
let me
know the
show
speed
you
of
something.
light really
Let me
either.
tell you something. The mass in the entire universe and all that bullshit, it's just bullshit. What they say, it's total and utter fucking rubbish. Now let's go. Let's
Well,
keep
that
going
doesn't make E equals MC squared not true though.
It does.
No, it doesn't.
Yes, it does.
Because that formula can still be true even if we don't know the values.
Yes, that's right. But at the same time, how can you ever? Oh, it must be true even though we know the values. So that means we must know the one-way speed of light or be able
Because
to measure
Einstein
it.
understood things that you and I will never know.
Einstein is a fucking wanker. Einstein
okay.
was a fucking knob jockey. That he was
Uh-huh.
an absolute fucking wanker that fucking got a lot of things wrong. And
But
now
yet
look,
you're standing on the shoulders of his theory of relativity to
I'm
even
standing
talk
on the
about this
shoulders of him
distant
being a
cause.
fucking bullshit artist. Well, I mean, honestly, they can never measure the one-way speed of light. It's impossible. But let's
Which
keep
may
going.
be true, but like okay.
It's
Well, yeah, let's
not
go on to
maybe
the other
true, it is
video.
true.
Is what
Not
we should do is we
maybe.
should watch the other video too. Because I'm still trying
Yeah,
to
that's
figure
right.
out
We're
the whole
watching the video
problem that's
now.
being solved.
We're watching it now.
Okay.
We're watching it
all right.
now.
Play on.
Would agree with the conventionality thesis that the one-way speed of light cannot be measured by any experiment because it is a convention. That's certainly what Einstein believed.
Well, Eli, what I'm bringing up is if you're going to bring the level of debate to a technical area that's beyond what lay people can comprehend, it needs to be done in front of the peer review.
Peer review is written, at least if it's going to be rigorous peer review. Because again, you can get up in front of some experts and make all kinds of claims, and by the time you're done, they may not even remember all the claims that you've made, unless they're rigorously writing down, taking really good notes. How can they immediately evaluate that in such a short time scale? Technical claims a lot of times require a great deal of thought, a great deal of research to investigate to see whether they're really correct, whether the conclusion really follows from the premises, whether the premises are true. You need time to investigate that. You need time to look it up in journals and so on and so forth. That's something you can't do in a verbal dialogue. Hugh would not be able to get away with the claims that he's making right now in this dialogue in a written format. He wouldn't be able to do it because he can make this claim that, well, these scientists have shown from supernovae that they've determined the one-way speed of light. Really, show me the technical paper. And he won't be able to do it because there aren't any technical papers that do that. I've checked.
Sure. So we want to talk about, how do we interpret the biblical Hebrew? Let's do that in front of people that are fluent in biblical Hebrew.
Ross is so
If we
full
want
of
to talk
shit.
about the astrophysics, let's do it in front of people who actually have PhDs
wanker.
in the discipline.
Hugh Ross is a
How about we do it
wanker.
in the written peer-reviewed technical literature? Because then I can reference the technical articles that have come before me that have demonstrated my point already, ones that Hugh is not familiar with. See, in a dialogue like this, you can't do that. Everything happens too fast. You can't immediately refute your opponent because you don't necessarily have all the papers right in front of you. You don't know what he's going to bring up. Whereas in a written exchange, you can. There's time. You can take a look at it and you can say, I think he's bluffing here. And let me go to the paper and check. That's one of the reasons I wanted to follow up this dialogue with these comments, because Hughes made a number of claims that he really can't support, including this one, this idea that you can measure the one-way speed of light with supernova. You can't do it. And could I convince physicists in a small setting, in a very short period of time, in a sort of dialogue? Perhaps, but consult the peer-reviewed technical literature, then I can definitely make a good argument.
And like I did with Danny Faulkner, we actually agreed upon the astronomers who would be part of the adjudicating council. And so I'm prepared to make the same offer to Jason.
What a wake-up!
If Hugh is willing to do this in the written form, written exchange, then I accept. And I'd be happy to have some physicists look at it. And this, by the way, this is a physics issue, because we're talking about the one-way speed of light, and I'm contending that Einstein was right, that it cannot be measured empirically, but rather is stipulated. Now, if he wants to debate that, I'd be fine with that. I'd be happy to get some physicists together, but let's do it in writing so that everything's documented, and so that you can't just make these claims out of the blue. Well, that, that's, astronomers have proved that. Have they? Show me the paper. In a written format, that would be required. So, Hugh, I hope you'll take me up on this and engage in a written debate on this issue. I'm happy to look at it, have some other physicists look at it. That'd be great.
Hugh, the problem is what you're discussing has already been published in the secular literature. In fact, there's a rich history of debate on the conventionality of distance simultaneity throughout the 20th century. If you want to see someone who tried to argue for it, for the position you're advocating, take a look at Malamuth's paper. But that was refuted in 1999 by Sarkar and Stachel. So if we're going to dialogue about this, you're going to have to dive into the literature that's already been published in the peer-reviewed literature. And if you want to publish a peer-reviewed article and debate online in a written format, I will happily do it on this issue.
No, I've looked at those papers and I agree with the comments that you're making there. What I'm saying is we now have observational evidence to put this to the test.
The papers that I cited demonstrate that there can be no observational evidence for one-way speed of light because it's conventional. So that suggests to me that he either hasn't actually read those papers at all, or he read them and didn't understand them. Because the fact is, if Sarkar and Stachel are right, if Einstein is right, if these others who've advocated the conventionality thesis are correct, there can be no observations that establish the one-way speed of light. Can't be done. It's a convention. We choose it. That tells us how to synchronize clocks. Then we can measure one-way speeds. And the measurements that we get will be consistent with whatever we chose for the one-way speed of light.
And so the fact that we see these supernova coming to us with different light paths, with different angles, they're not all coming directly towards the Earth. This actually gives us a way to test these ideas. And this, again, is in the published literature.
No, it isn't. See, this is the kind of thing that Hugh can get away with in a verbal exchange, but he would not be able to get away with that in a written debate. Why? Because he would have to provide the reference. He would have to provide a reference to an article on supernovae that somehow try to prove the one-way speed of light. But the problem is there aren't any. I've checked. Remember, Hugh's been arguing about these gravitationally lensed supernovae, and these are relatively recent, right? 2014 was the first time any human being had seen that. And so you can look in the technical literature, are there any papers post-2014 that talk about gravitationally lensed supernovae and the speed of light? I've only been able to find one, and it said nothing about the one-way speed of light. And so Hugh here is just bluffing is all it comes down to. Or maybe somebody told him that there was this paper that established the one-way speed of light from gravitational lens supernova, and he just believed it. But in any case, it's not true. So I'd like to take a look at this paper, and we'll see if Hugh is correct, or we'll see if I'm correct. So here's the paper, and it's testing the speed of light over cosmological distances, the combination of strongly lensed.
Hang on, let me put this. Let me put this on high quality, right? So people can read it for a second. Okay, there's the high quality. Now you can stop your, halt your browser and whatever. Right, there it is.
And unlensed supernovae type 1a. So let's have a
Wait a minute. I'm going to put it back up.
Yeah, and that type 1A supernovae, that's what they use for luminosity to guesstimate the distance to these vastly distant galaxies that the Webb telescope's been finding.
Yeah, well, let's listen. Let's listen.
Okay, all right.
look here. As we look into this paper in the introduction here, on the other hand, during the past 2 decades, great attention has been paid to the theories with varying speed of light, VSL, in which the speed of light might be dynamical and could have been varying in the past. So this paper is not testing the speed of light in different directions. It's testing the possible differences in the round trip speed of light over time. So it's not, it has nothing to do with the one-way speed of light. Is the one-way speed of light even mentioned in this paper? Let's take a look. I can type down in here, I can type in one way, and no, it's not there. How about isotropic? Isotropic. Nope, it's not in the paper. How about directions, as in different directions? Not there. So there's nothing about the one-way speed of light. You can measure the round trip speed of light, sure, using supernova. That's not a problem. We've been able to do that since, I mean, the first measurement of the speed of light is one of those that seems like it's a one-way measurement using Jupiter's moons, but in reality, it assumes the Einstein synchrony convention. And so it's actually a round-trip measurement of the speed of light. So Hugh is just mistaken on this issue. Again, that's something that he wouldn't be able to get away with in a written exchange.
Multiple papers have been written on the observation of the supernova eruption.
Not determining the one-way speed of light. They cannot do that. And even secularists will admit that. Secularists who are informed on this issue, like Sarkar and Stachel, you're going to have to look at those papers, Hugh.
Well, I do agree it can't be done in a lab on planet Earth, but if you've got a distant supernova that's been gravitationally lensed along multiple paths, and the fact that they actually take different times to reach us,
is perfectly consistent with the anisotropic synchrony convention. The light beam that takes the longer path, its angle is farther from line of sight, and therefore the speed of light in that direction will be slower than an angle that's closer to our line of sight. And I gave that angle. I gave it in my original technical paper back in 2010. And then I, in my recent response to Peter and refuting the critics on our Biblical Science Institute website, I gave the formula again. So again, Hugh has not bothered to read the literature on this topic, or he would know that what he's saying, it can't be done. You cannot refute a convention observationally.
So
Still would work. One of the things you may be missing, and by the way, have you read my article where I refute that? Just out of curiosity.
I've not read your latest article. I'll take the time to do that. But have you read the articles on the supernova?
I have. And what about these papers that Hugh says? Well, there have been multiple papers published on this gravitationally lensed supernova. Yes, I know, I've read them. And they say nothing about the one-way speed of light. You know why? Because you can't measure the one-way speed of light using gravitationally lensed supernovae. And any physicist worth his salt would know that. Anyone who's familiar with the physics of Einstein would recognize that. Let's have a look at these articles on this gravitationally lensed supernova.
Here we go,
There are only a few
Cecil.
because this happened very recently. So do these articles, do these technical papers support Hugh's assertion that that they establish the one-way speed of light? Do they even address the issue? Well, let's have a look. So this is one of the most recent papers analyzing these two gravitationally lensed supernova, the only two that are known at the present time. This paper is published in 2019. It deals with both the Revstal supernova and the more recent SN IPT F16 GEU supernova. And it's using these to test cosmological parameters. That's the point, turning the title of the paper, turning gravitationally lensed supernovae into cosmological probes, because you can measure things like the Hubble constant by measuring the timing of these events. And so if there was any paper that was going to talk about trying to attempt to measure the one-way speed of light, this would be it. So is there any mention of the one-way speed of light in this paper? Well, let's check. Let's do a search for one-way. One-way. Click not found. How about without the hyphen? One way. Not there. Well, how about the speed of light? Let's try that. Even the speed of light is not mentioned, so obviously it's not going to address the one-way speed of light. How about isotropic?
This is what these
That is
dickheads-
mentioned, but it's regarding the magnification of the source. It's not regarding the speed of light at all. It's dealing with the magnification of the source being the same in all directions. So, and that's the only mention of isotropic in the paper. So yeah, there's nothing in this paper about the one-way speed of light, and therefore it's not an attempt to measure the one-way speed of light. Here's another paper from 2018, Rates and Properties of Strongly Gravitationally Lensed Supernovae and Their Host Galaxies in Time Domain Imaging Surveys. And so again, you'd think, well, this paper ought to discuss the one-way speed of light if that's something that you can derive from supernovae. The paper mentions both the Ravsdale supernova and the more recent 2016 supernova. So it's up to date. Is there any mention of the one-way speed of light in this paper? Well, let's check. One way. Nope. One way is not mentioned. How about without the hyphen? One way. Not mentioned. Is the speed of light mentioned in this paper? Speed of light. Speed of light is not even mentioned in this paper. So, I mean, the thing is, Hugh Ross would not even have read these papers to know they don't mention anything about the one-way speed of light. All you have to do is do the little search, use the little search bar, just like I did right there. Hugh mentioned the discoverers of these gravitational lens supernova. Well, here's the technical paper written by the people who discovered it, the discovery of a gravitationally lensed supernova, type 1a at redshift 2.22. And we're going to find, when we look at this, that they don't even mention one way or the speed of light. So one way, nothing found. How about the speed of light? Nothing there. Okay, so again, there's nothing in these papers
see how he
that Hugh has
dismantled
referenced
these
that
wankers?
even address the issue of the one-way speed of light, let alone purport to measure it. So Hugh is just very badly mistaken on this issue. And by the way, this is something that he wouldn't be able to get away with in a written exchange because he'd have to provide the references.
Exactly what I was talking about. You would never get away with this in a fucking peer-reviewed written exchange between people. Absolutely. Hugh Ross is full of shit. He'll never ever go against, he's never actually gone against Jason Lyle in his peer-reviewed papers. He's never tried to go against him in a written format, which says everything.
And when people looked at the references, they'd see they don't support the claim that Hugh has made. Okay, well, we'll go ahead and break here for today. I hope that you're enjoying this discussion. I hope that the comments that I've made after the fact have bolstered your faith that God's word really is true from the beginning and science confirms it. That's really what we're all about here at the Biblical Science Institute. Lord willing, we'll pick it up next time with more analysis of this little dialogue I did with Hugh Ross. Hope you're enjoying it. Hope it's been helpful to you. We'll see you next time. God bless.
All right. So do you have a
you
summary of that there, Jason? I would summarize this as they're not sure about the speed of light.
Of course, that's what he just said. That's what he
Oh.
just said. He just said that. Exactly what you just said.
That's exactly what he said, though. I mean,
Yes,
it was a
that's
summarized.
exactly what he said.
It was
Exactly.
it was a summarized quote, so it could have been exactly what he said, but I was pretty sure he said something.
It's
kind of like
exactly what he said. Exactly. Yes, it is.
Well, it seems like they don't know the constant speed of light. So, but like I said, they also don't know
He's
all the
saying
mass.
is that,
the
that's
mass of
right.
all the matter in the
They're
universe.
literally saying they don't know the constant speed of light. They literally said that. So you're
Right. But they also don't know all the measure of all the energy in the universe.
they don't know. They only know the two-way speed of light. Is what I said. Is you can set up clocks, right? You can set up a clock 30 meters away from me, just 30 meters away.
But it sounds like they're
clock
not
will
even
be out of
sure about that.
synchronization between the one-way speed of light. It'll be way out. It'll just get fucked on. The only way you can measure the speed of light is two ways. Is when you put the speed of light onto a mirror and the mirror reflects it, and then it catches the time. That's the only way.
Sure.
You can never.
And even then,
ever
it's an estimation.
one-way speed of light. It's impossible.
Even then, it's an estimation, you know? So.
Well, that's right, but it's impossible to measure the one-way speed of light. It's impossible.
And if light actually does refract and reflect and change speed, it was the whole point. Like he was choosing a value for this concept.
Einstein was a moron.
Oh, okay, yeah.
That's
well.
my
Anyway,
opinion. Einstein is a moron.
Sure,
that's
sure.
my opinion.
You know, he was a creationist. You know,
he's a dog. No, he wasn't. Einstein was a fucking no. He wasn't. You got that wrong. I love it when people bring up about Einstein being
okay. Well, he believed in a prime mover that created the universe.
No, Einstein was a fucking atheist, mate.
No, he didn't. He repented before he died.
Oh, okay.
He repented before he died. People said, but that's bullshit. Einstein was an atheist.
Record it. Go and look it up.
Oh, it might be recorded, Doug, but Einstein was an atheist.
Well, all I know is I've heard that
do you believe Einstein
believed...
was an atheist or a creationist? Which one?
Well, if you believe in a prime mover that created everything, then you're a creationist. You might not be a young Earth creationist. Or biblical
Einstein,
creationist.
we're talking about Einstein. Einstein never believed in a creator. He was an atheist. This is the thing that people get wrong about Einstein. They think Einstein was like this great guy that.
Well, I didn't say he was a great guy, but I know he was.
No, this great guy that made fucking the one-way light speedy convention and all this shit. All these people believe.
Sure.
And he had heaps of theories.
What's Doug?
MC
What's Doug saying
equals
about all
MC
this?
squared was proven true. Einstein was a fucking dog. Was a low-life fucking piece of shit that didn't care about
Einstein was
God.
Dr. Brown's dog.
He was a genius
Back to the
that
Future.
hated God.
No, wait. No, yes, he
Heaps of
was. Yes, he
people
was
think
Einstein.
that Einstein was some sort of person who believes in our fucking like Einstein was such a fucking atheist piece of shit. You really need to understand that. Yes.
Well, he's dead now, so I guess we can't ask him. You know what I mean?
Einstein, look it up. Einstein,
All right,
you know
I'll
they
look it up
say
on-
Einstein
I'll
went
see
up
what
to
people
his
say on Wikipedia.
professor, and he said all this shit to his professor, and
Oh, yeah.
and that proves that he was a creationist. Well, that's actually wrong. Einstein
It proves he's a creationist. Yeah.
Creationism, he hated it. He hated it.
Atheism?
Yes. Einstein hated creationism. He hated anything. It's like the same thing when you have these people, what do they call them?
Did he say why? Did he say why he hated it? Or like, where are you drawing that from?
Well, answer his questions.
Well, I can't remember.
Come on, answer his
Too
fucking
drunk.
question.
Too drunk to remember. Hang on. Let's go this one. 19 minutes. Jason
All right.
Lyle. Hang on. Let's try this one.
So who's
Let's
this?
see.
Who is this Jason Lyle that we've been listening to? I don't know if you ever gave an introduction for maybe people that might be listening later on. Or
Yeah, explain it to him. Go on. Explain it to him who he is.
Hang on. I'm trying to.
Is he a creationist or an atheist?
Hang on.
All right. Oh, while we're hanging on, I actually did something while we were watching that and uploaded this photo for the people watching in the chat. And this is what we were talking about earlier, is basically cosmic evolution. This is the whole story of evolution, you know. And you can't, and you know, Jason's point stands, you know, you can't have one without the other because they're prerequisites for each other. So I think that's the word. I should stop using it if I don't know. But so you have particulate evolution first, then galactic, stellar, planetary, chemical. Ooh, and you can even read it this time. This is beautiful. Biological, cultural, future. I don't know why they added that on there. But anyway, this is a photo from Harvard University site. It's basically, it's just to show that the evolution story, while biological evolution and cosmic evolution are definitely two different things, they're reinforced by each other, and you can't have one without the other as far as further down the line. So biological evolution is further down the line than cosmic evolution. So therefore you have to have cosmic evolution before you can really believe. Well, no, that's not true. So you can believe in biological evolution but never have a stance on what happened before that. But then you have a theory that is full of gaps. So if you want to fill in those gaps, you have to choose one theory or another. But if you want to choose to be undecided on that, I guess then you can not take a stance on the Big Bang or abiogenesis and just believe in what you see now, and you think, biological evolution is all you're trying to take a stance on. So, and I can see that. I can see that position as well. So I think that Robin was pretty right on, but I think that Jason's right on too, because you can't have biological evolution without cosmology. But you were also trying. I don't think you were really seeing her point, which was basically biological evolution isn't what we're talking about. We're talking about cosmic evolution. So particulates first, then you have the gases. Okay. And then they believe that the gases, through gravity, magically coalesce into the very first stars and planets. And then you have, so that's stellar and planetary. Then the chemicals, so you have the first chemicals develop. And then they believe that those chemicals assembled themselves somehow naturally through some unknown, natural, unnameable natural process that they call abiogenesis theory. Okay. They believe in some unknown, unnameable natural process that arranged these chemicals into such elaborate, well-balanced systems that those systems became living forms, which is really,
Which you can't have.
that's out there. Are you back, Jason?
They can't back it
Yeah,
up with
man.
anything.
I'm here. Keep
All right.
going.
Oh, no, I
Enjoying
pretty much
it.
said it all. I said it all. I'll get
All
this
right.
out of the way. But yeah.
You can't back it up with any theory or physics or anything.
So here we go. Let's have a look at these.
So basically, they're like Christians.
You've got another video to watch here?
Yeah.
Nice.
Hang on. Just wait a second. Hang on. Oh.
But I'm glad that you agree with the idea that the light was created with what would be, the quality of given age, which is what the young Earth creationists believe in. Biblical creationists tend to believe in given age, even if they believe in an old Earth point of view of creationism. So even the old Earthers really have a universe coming about with some sort of age, whether it's just the physical constants already being there, or they're accepted, that God tuned them. So, I mean, even that's like a given attribute. So, to me, I think like a given age is throughout all of the basic creation models that we have currently that people really believe in. So the biblical creation one, you have the starlight already reaching the planet Earth and all the stars, not just the close ones like Alpha Centauri or whatever, but all the stars of the universe, even the distant galaxies, their light reaching the Earth the day it was created. I mean, it might be day 4 that God allowed that light to shine through the firmament of heaven, but I don't think that the actual stars were created on the 4th day, but rather that they were created in the beginning, of the first day of creation, along with the basic Earth and its star. So, But that's just my view and interpretation of Genesis chapter 1, is that it has God coming to the unformed planet, you know, and then
It says in the
creating the
beginning,
environment for life.
In the beginning,
What is it?
God created.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Yeah.
that's it. Exactly. Spot on, brother.
And a lot of people see that as yeah, they take it directly, like literal. So like everything was there in the first day, basically, and then the earth was actually set up during the 6 days of creation. And that 6 days of creation is really more about God creating the atmosphere here on planet Earth and the environment for the animals, so on and so forth. Ooh, I don't think we're gonna watch. I'm not trying to watch Donnie, dude.
Hey,
So
hey,
if this has
how
anything
about we
with him in it,
listen to
I'm not
what
trying to
Donnie's
have his
got to
material.
say? Hey, shut up. How about we listen
What?
to what Donnie's got to say, and then we
Nope.
respond
I'm gonna end it
that.
if you play Donnie. I'm telling you right now.
All right, goodbye.
I'm not having
then.
him on my channel because
Goodbye.
he's full of crap.
Goodbye.
He believes in
Goodbye.
evolution.
Goodbye. Goodbye.
He believes in evolution. No.
You're gone. Goodbye. You're gone. Nah, he's full of shit. He keeps saying Donnie is a evolutionist who believes in evolution. He's not. He hates it. He's actually fucking fuck the cunt. He's a fucking
All right.
dog.
I'm ending the stream.